What in the hell, goddamn it? I cannot believe that I just did this. What in the hell is wrong with JB? I cannot, I am perplexed as to why people actually watch this damn channel. And then next thing you know, I decide to put snooze on the alarm clock, and then next thing you know, I end up being late. This is not right. See, this is one of the reasons why I get on my own damn nerves, because every single time I decide to do something special, then I end up doing this BS, and I'm sick and tired of myself. And I'll be surprised if you guys just like leave right now. I wouldn't be surprised. That's some good tea, though. Oh, I needed that. Oh, yes. Anywho, welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I'm your host, JamesBFauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this Thursday evening. Yes, Thursday evening. Just to let you guys know, the Jaybefaunt channel is also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you guys can find me there on Thursdays, typically for the Sabby and JB show, as well as Sundays for the JB show, and typically here on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good to have you guys all back. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. My apologies for the tardiness. Like I said, I had an alarm, and then I cut it off, and then I went back to sleep. I was so exhausted from the gym that I was just like, you know what? Let me take a couple minutes, because I actually had my alarm go off a little bit early. And then next thing you know, I wake up and it's 7 and I'm like, so sometimes I wonder why y'all watch this damn channel, because sometimes I'm just like, what in the world? I try to be good to you. I try to be punctual. I'm trying. Anywho, good to see all of you here. If you guys have not already, you guys can join my Substack so you guys can get email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles. And I promise I'm usually not this late. I usually am not. But thank you very much. If you guys want to have a question, you guys want me to do a video response to, send me a QBounty at qbounty.com/JBFaunt. Everybody, it is going to be a great show. It is the day after Christmas. I hope you guys had happy holidays over the week. Yes, absolutely. It is the day after Christmas. Let's go ahead and say hello to some people in the chat, and then we'll get into what we're going to be talking about today. It's going to be a really good one. We have CBC Voter coming in saying happy Thursday at JB. Good to see you, CBC Voter. Nice. We have Charlie Mac, all dressed in black, all dressed in black. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Good to see you. All right, DJ Leader coming in saying happy holidays, brother. Hopefully you're feeling better after your healthcare issues. Yes, I will be talking about that a little bit as well. We're going to be getting into that too. Yes, Roger Meadows says, bro, I told you you're not hiding from me. I know you saw my post on X asking what episode are you on, try to give you a homework assignment. I didn't see it, but I completely just like, yeah, I'm going to get to it. I have to get to it. I have dialysis tomorrow too, so hopefully I can just get to it while I'm there instead. So thank you very much, Roger. I apologize. We'll have it all done before 2025, I promise. Terry Connolly says, good evening, JB and comrades. Good to see you as well. Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander changed their profile picture. Look at it. It says, oh, stop. Oh, stop, Cobra Commander. Yes. And yes, I do have 4 tea bags. That's how strong my tea is all the time. I put 4 tea bags in my cup. All right. Kate Mack says, never. All right. Corbid Ravenscraft says, love and forehead kisses, JB. Love and forehead kisses to you. All right. Who else do we have up in here that were joining us? Finally, we have John H. coming in saying love in the American Sign Language way. All right. We have Edward says, just shows the Israeli government wants to wipe out Palestinians as part of the ethnic cleansing. Yes. We're going to talk about that too. It's going to be an interesting and heavy topic to get into, but nevertheless, we got to get into it. Janice says, hi, all. Good to see you. Janice. All right. Nice to have you. Let's check on the Rumble side and the Rockfin side to see if we have any chats. Anybody saying hello? We got people watching, but people are a little bit quiet, so that is okay. You know, we got people that want to, you know, take it easy, you know, be a little inconspicuous. So it is nice to have you. So what are we going to be talking about? Well, we have a couple of things that we're going to be getting into later in the show today. I would like to do just a Q&A, and there's a couple of things that I actually want to talk about that just, you know, popped up. It's not a particular segment, but there's a couple of things that I wanted to share that I thought is really cool to share, especially towards the end of this year, as we get into the end of 2024 and then we get into 2025. So I would like to get into that. So if you guys also have any pressing questions that you guys would like to ask me as well, go ahead and put it in the chat, and I will try my best to make sure to go through, start, and then we can go through that. But I also got some things that I would like to share with you guys, some things that I found pretty interesting. You know, this and that and the other, this, that, and the third, basically. And then we're going to be, our first subject is going to be this quote, "This is absolutely unforgivable." So we're going to be talking about what happened in North Gaza as compared to what I went through here in the United States on the same day. The same day. So we're going to get into that right now. As many of you know, this past Sunday, over the weekend, I was in the hospital. Really not necessarily by choice. It was really out of duress because, of course, as you guys know, I'm on kidney dialysis, and so my kidney dialysis access was clotted. So therefore, I had to have it done in hospital versus my preferred method of having it done outpatient. With that being said, I gave into a cycle which I am pretty much annoyed by, you know, heightened potassium levels and then having to lower the potassium before you can actually have a procedure done. This is part and parcel of the life of a dialysis patient. But what I went through, even though it was annoying, it wasn't life-threatening because of outside forces. So I would like to get into this because this is absolutely necessary to talk about. Because as somebody that's disabled, as somebody that has went through a lot of medical procedures, necessary medical procedures, I couldn't dream of having to endure a genocide outside of my hospital window while trying to get healthy or maintain my life. But yet some Palestinians had to go through that. Let me share this, what happened at a North Gaza hospital. And then, of course, I will be pausing at intervals to discuss some points. But shout out to Case Study QB for this. Thank you very much for this heavy topic. Let's get into it.
What you're looking at here are windows inside the Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza. They are covered with sandbags for the fear of snipers. According to the hospital's director, this is the only hospital providing any humanitarian services in the north. And yet this is the scene of devastation that they are facing each and every day. Over the past 24 hours, health officials have reported intense Israeli attacks on the hospital, including on the ICU maternity ward and the neonatal unit. Because the hospital has been hit repeatedly, this video from Tuesday is one of the latest our team was able to verify. Kamal Adwan, along with the entirety of northern Gaza, have been under total Israeli siege for more than 70 days now, since early October. But the situation is still dire for everyone throughout the besieged strip. Here are scenes from the aftermath of an Israeli airstrike on a house in Deir el-Balah earlier today. Again, this is in central Gaza. Among the 11 people killed were Dr. Nasser, who used to work at Al-Shifa Hospital, his wife, and Dr. Ahmed al-Dahiri, university professor, his wife, and 3 children. The homeowner was also killed, along with his wife and kids.
First off, I would like to talk about this because I think it's really important to go into, because a lot of times we focus on the patients, right? Which, of course, that's the first thing you think about. But we don't talk about the medical personnel, the doctors, the nurses, the techs, the people who keep the hospital clean, the people who transport the patients, right? We don't talk about them. We don't talk about the risks that some of these doctors literally could move themselves out of Gaza. They could try to go to another part of Palestine, or they could try to leave and get refugee status. But many of them stay. Why? Because they love their people. Because they want to be there for them. Let's say you have a doctor and you have a particular case, and then your doctor is murdered by the IOF. Now, it's not just a circumstance of, oh my God, they got my doctor, but also just from a logistics standpoint, now you have to get a new doctor, which has to familiarize themselves with your case and familiarize themselves with your condition in order to be able to treat you. Some of these doctors may be specialists that are more rare in these areas. Some of these doctors could be nephrologists. They could be cardiologists. They could be anesthesiologists. They could be gastrointestinal doctors. They could be neurologists. They could be a whole host of different type of specialized medicine. They could be different surgeons. They could be surgeons that are focused mostly on your limbs, right? They could be ear, nose, and throat doctors. You never know. They could just be general practitioner, internal medicine. You never know. But the fact is that they're losing specialists, they're losing general practitioners, they're losing nurses, they're losing techs. If you're a nurse, can you imagine what it's like to not have a tech or a nursing assistant to assist you with helping patients? If you're a doctor, can you imagine what it's like to not have a nurse to help you, to assist you with helping patients? No surgical assistance. This is what's going on there. I want the weight of this to be as heavy as possible for us to realize that, yes, even though we've been talking about what's been going on for the last 14 months, it doesn't make it any less heavy. Let's continue.
For more than 400 days, these scenes have become the norm. Whole families are being killed. Hospitals, schools that are being targeted, barely functioning, all of them destroyed, no ceasefire or end in sight. Earlier, I spoke with Louise Waterridge, Digital Communication and Social Media Officer at UNRWA, about these ongoing attacks and more. And she was speaking to us from central Gaza. Louise, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We've seen these reports about the intense Israeli attacks on Kamal Adwan Hospital this weekend in North Gaza. We know that you're in central Gaza, but what have you heard? What can you tell us about the attacks on this hospital as of this hour?
It's been nearly 80 days that the north part of the Gaza Strip has been under this very strict siege and continued military operations. What we're hearing the last 24 hours is it just keeps intensifying. Every single day we hear reports from medical staff who are still there trying to provide whatever care and treatment they can to people who are trapped in these areas, who are trying to find shelter in these areas. We have very limited access. We've continued to have repeated denial of the United Nations to these areas. And it's just unimaginable. It really is unimaginable, the suffering and pain that people are being put through in these areas, and the continued really, really intense operations around the hospital and around the residential areas where people are just trying to find some kind of safety.
We know that.
So let's get into this right here, because what's going on right now is the targeting of hospitals is a war crime. And no matter what you say, you can make excuses about Hamas all you want. They're targeting hospitals. Israel is targeting hospitals. How many hospitals were targeted by Hamas within Israel? Day after day after day, the IOF does actions that make Palestinian resistance seem like the lesser evil. Is the resistance even an evil? Looking at what the IOF is doing. That's the question that I ask. Because you literally have hospitals that are being targeted. My goodness.
We know these attacks have continued all throughout the besieged Gaza Strip. Just last week, at least 36 people were killed in an Israeli strike on the Nusayrat refugee camp where you are now located. Just in the past 24 hours, you've had 32 Palestinians that have been killed throughout the Strip, according to the health ministry there. How often are you seeing strikes? Is there any warning from Israeli forces to you and your team when they do actually carry out attacks or not?
As I'm speaking to you now, there are strikes going on all around me. I hear there's been reports of a strike in Mawasi. This is supposed to be the humanitarian zone. This is supposed to be a designated safe area for families to shelter. It's been hit in a strike once again, just in the last half an hour or so. And there's been some very heavy and severe bombings. It shakes the entire building. It shakes the floor. And it's been relentless. The last couple of nights, it's been all through the night. I saw my colleagues and friends today. People are exhausted. There's no warning. It's Navy fire. It's drones. It's strikes. It is just relentless. And it's really, it just has such a psychological effect on people that you can't sleep. You can't plan anything. You can't plan movement. If you try and go and get some flour or some food or anything like this, you can be caught out in any kind of attack or strike. And this has been going on 14 months. This isn't a new situation. It's just relentless.
Let me ask you more about the north for a moment, because the UN has said that it has been largely blocked from getting aid into northern Gaza for the last 2 months since the area first came under Israelis' total siege. There are some 75,000 people who are still in the north. Just tell us, what is actually stopping the aid from getting through? And more importantly, what are you hearing about how those 75,000 people there are literally surviving day in and day out?
From what we hear and what we see, anywhere in this besieged north area is flattened. It's not habitable anymore. It's completely decimated. We know areas around the Gaza Strip, around Gaza City, for example, are resembling this. Khan Yunis resembles this. These areas, they were once cities that are absolutely flattened. And now this is what Jabalia looks like. Now this is what Beit Hanun looks like. It's unrecognizable. And we continue to be denied access. And when I say that, I mean, WFP tweeted yesterday, 97% of their requests have been denied. 97%.
What reason
so we
does the
continue
Israeli
to do what we can.
What reason does the Israeli military give you when they are denying you access to these areas?
Sometimes no reason, sometimes military operations. It depends. It really depends on the mission. It depends on the day. Sometimes there's no information. So it's very difficult for us to plan or to know why or which areas. We've had some missions where certain areas we're not allowed to go, but those areas will be where the hospitals are or the people are. Sometimes we're denied even taking food or medical supplies in the convoys. There have been, at the beginning of last month, medical evacuations, but then they weren't allowed to take medical supplies with them. They weren't allowed to take food with them. They weren't allowed to take water with them. It's just inhumane. It's absolutely inhumane.
So let me go back to this part here, and I'll go back to that. I want to show you guys. This is basically the inside of the hospital, right? Of course, you have the beds, you have where the nurses' station is, right? But can you imagine being in a hospital and going through this in a war zone? I'm feeling right now for all the patients that are there, because I was literally there at the same time that these sieges are happening. Imagine being a dialysis patient at these hospitals, going through what they're going through. Not sure whether you're going to be able to get your treatment. And do you know how complex dialysis is? Making sure that you have a water filtration system, making sure that you have all the necessary, I don't want to say chemicals, but necessary substances to be able to filter the blood properly and to be able to dialyze people. Can you imagine not being able to do that properly? And then that person has to, in order to maintain them, you have to dialyze them 2 to 3 times a week. But what if you can only get to the dialysis center? Or what if they only have the capacity to dialyze you once a week? So then you're feeling that fluid build up. It's hard to breathe. You got to be extremely careful how much you can drink. It could be water, milk, juice. It doesn't matter, right? Even though water is very hard to come by. And so breathing may be a little labored, may have shortness of breath before dialysis. No possibility of ever getting a kidney transplant because, well, hospitals are being destroyed. And so while you may not be able to get the adequate dialysis, you could possibly die over an extended period of time because your dialysis is not being managed properly. So I just wanted to emphasize that there from a person's perspective who is, who is also a patient. Let's continue. Oh, sorry. I had muted.
People there wanted to leave, or if they wanted to evacuate the hospital, is Israel even giving them safe passage to get to other parts of Gaza where it may be safer? I know no part of Gaza is safe, but relatively speaking to what we're seeing right now in the north, would they be given evacuation passageways to get to other areas from Kamal Adwan Hospital in the north?
I've spoken to a lot of families in Gaza City over the last few weeks who have just fled this besieged north area. And what is noticeable actually is that these families are female. I asked them, where are your relatives? Where are your family? Tell me what's happened. And they tell me that the male relatives, the husbands, the brothers, the sons, the fathers, they were detained or they were shot. That's the answer that they have. There's no safety. I met an 80-year-old woman in a wheelchair. She said her young male relatives were pushing her and they were shot and killed in front of her. And she was left there stranded, waiting to be saved. Another family had to continue pushing her out of the area. People hear about this. People know about these experiences. People talk to each other. There's no safety. Where do they want people to move when there's no safety? Families are just trying to stay together and stay alive. There's no reason for them to move and be forcibly displaced for the 14th, 15th, 16th time to another area just to die there. They don't want to do that. They want to stay where they are. They want to stay with their families, and they just want to try and stay alive.
That's another point. A lot of times people don't think about is the fact is that it is unstable. There is no stability to be able to stay where you are. And, once you go to a new area, you have to look for where to get food, where to get water, where is safe. Imagine the PTSD that people are going through. Imagine the amount of anxiety. Those of you who have to deal with anxiety on a day-to-day basis, can you imagine that what the people are going through just to be able to survive? The trauma, just the amount of trauma.
We are more than 400 days into what leading human rights organizations are now calling a genocide. What is your message to the international community of either health officials, human rights activists, the politicians, the diplomats that continue to see these horrific scenes, continue to see these atrocities, and completely unable to rein Israel in or to end this war as the media coverage of Gaza continues to dwindle?
It's unforgivable. I've been here since the Rafah incursion. It was unforgivable then, it's unforgivable now. Well, you're seeing people, they're helpless. My colleague was down in Rafah when the strikes, there was a child who was burning alive, headless, and it went viral, and all eyes were on Rafah, we were told. The same thing is happening now. The same thing is happening today in the besieged north. It's no doubt happening in Nusayrat. It's probably happening in Mawasi while I'm speaking to you. Every day. How is this happening? It's been 14 months. It's absolutely unforgivable that nothing is being done. The journalists on the ground are risking life and limb on a daily basis to show the world what is happening. We know what is happening. We're telling you what is happening. It's not okay. It's not okay that this inaction continues. It needs to stop. There has to be a ceasefire. It is the only hope now.
All right, Luis Wateridge.
And yet, Israel has been brought to heel on this. There's been some reports that have come out as of recently that I want to share. This is from CAIR, the Council of American Islamic Relations. This is one of their headlines, and I think this is indicative of what carnage that Israel is doing. Says CAIR condemns international apathy in the face of genocide as babies freeze to death in Gaza. Says the Council on American and Islamic Relations, the nation's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization, today condemned the international apathy in the face of genocide that resulted in the freezing deaths of babies in Gaza. At least 4 Palestinian babies have died of hypothermia and lack of access to warmth while living in tents. CAIR says these babies froze to death because of international apathy in the face of the genocide being carried out by far-right Israeli government, with the active complicity of the Biden administration, the international and systemic denial of humanitarian aid, and the resulting suffering, starvation, and deaths. and the direct result of the genocidal Israeli government's brutal actions and the support for those crimes against humanity by the Biden administration. First of all, we need to continue to lay in that Biden is still president. He's still president for another 25 days. He's a lame duck president. Could enforce a ceasefire right now. He could enforce, a arms embargo right now. And yet, he chooses not to. So even when it's not politically, even when it's no harm to him politically, he still does not do the right thing. This tells you everything you need to know about who Joe Biden is. Even when it will not harm him politically, he still allows this carnage to happen. Says earlier today, CARE called on U.S. media outlets and journalists to condemn Israel's latest killings and attacks on journalists in Gaza and the West Bank. Yesterday, CARE condemned comments by the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Jacob Lew, dismissing the report by U.S.-backed agency on Israel's campaign to force starvation in northern Gaza by stating that the ethnic cleansing of the area was largely completed. Earlier this week, CARE reiterated its call for American Medical Association to condemn Israel's attacks on medical facilities in Gaza as 3 hospitals in devastated northern Gaza are under siege or face forced evacuation. This is something else that I want to talk about because I have a comrade that is a physician. And the silence from the medical community, from the American Medical Association, from many different medical associations across this country, as Israel commits atrocities against innocent Palestinians all over. Their silence is deafening. For the doctors, whether they be general practitioners, specialists, nurses, techs, nursing assistants, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, any of you, your silence in this is complicity. You're supposed to do no harm. And yet you're allowing your silence to do exactly the opposite. To allow, to permit, to condone the harm that's being done within Gaza, within these hospitals. Shame on you. Shame on you. Israel has slaughtered more than 45,000 people in Gaza, mostly women and children. CARE's mission is to protect the civil rights, enhance understanding of Islam, promote justice, and empower American Muslims. And so that's basically what it says. But yes, babies are freezing to death. Are you going to make a excuse for that? Are you going to blame the resistance for that? because it's not the resistance that's causing them to freeze, because they have to live in tents. Remember, we're in the northern hemisphere. It's winter. It's cold outside. And this time of year, it gets cold in that part of the world too. And infants are dying. Let me also share this as well. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I want to make sure I get this. So this is out of Common Dreams. It says, we are being attacked in plain sight. Israeli forces besiege 3 Gaza hospitals. It says it is unacceptable for the world to remain silent and unable to protect the healthcare system. That's from Gaza's health ministry. It says, Israeli forces have encircled and attacked 3 barely functioning hospitals in northern Gaza with growing intensity over the past week, endangering the lives of patients receiving treatment inside the facilities, including premature babies and medical workers. Dr. Hussam Abu Safaya, the director of Kamal Adwan Hospital, said in a video statement that over the weekend that the Israeli military had surrounded the facility and bullets had penetrated the intensive care unit, the maternity department, and specialized surgery department. I want to make this abundantly clear. I just want you guys to visualize this. Imagine your loved one giving birth and then they're hit by a bullet as they're giving birth. Could you live with that? You got a baby that is in a nursery after being born and bullets are whizzing by. Did you know that the miscarriage rate jumped 300% in Gaza? Miscarriages jumped 300%. This is why it is so important for us to continue to talk about this. And I know there's a fatigue here in the United States. There's a fatigue, there's a genocide fatigue that's happening right now. I get it. I get it. We're tired of hearing about it. Some people who probably were watching this very stream checked out. But what if it were you going through a genocide? A present genocide, not a slow-moving one like some of us are going through right now, but a more rapid-pacing, immediate genocide. Wouldn't you want other people to continue to keep talking about it? A couple weeks back, we had a young teenage girl who was harmed by IOF's occupation and what they're doing in Gaza. This is a teenage girl that was harmed. And through the tireless work of organizations like Heal Palestine, they were able to bring her from Gaza to here in the United States. And we welcome her here in Orlando. And this is being done in many different cities across the United States. But it's an arduous task in order to be able to get them here in order to get medical care. I ask you, what would have happened if she was in one of those hospitals that was under siege? Let me just share it with you guys, because I actually did a live stream with it. We welcome Hala from Palestine. And this is the moment she arrived here in Orlando. So people are walking.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate it. Yes. Rafael.
So I just want to make this abundantly clear. Think about if this young lady was still in Gaza right now in one of these hospitals. Would she have survived? What about the other people, the other young children in Gaza that have lost limbs, been subjected to white phosphorus that is burned down to their bones, from the surface of their skin down to their bones? What if this have happened? And no doubt it's not just babies that are dying from hypothermia, but it's probably also very young children too. But we have to highlight the babies because, well, how else are we going to keep the outrage of genocide going? We have to let people know exactly that some of the youngest victims. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen fetuses taken out of the dead mother's womb and doctors trying to save the fetus. This is heavy, and we cannot stop talking about what Israel is doing. Allah is the exception, not the rule. But the rule should be Palestine should be free. It shouldn't be like this. Even though I was annoyed in the hospital with what I was enduring, that should be, it shouldn't be the norm, but it should be, you know, the worst that somebody in Gaza should have to deal with. It shouldn't have to be this death and destruction outside of their hospital window. So I hope this reinvigorates your resolve to keep talking about it. Don't let anybody bully you into being against what the U.S. hegemon is doing, what Israel is doing. Do not let them bully you into doing that. This is deeply important. Our solidarity has to go with people who are in places like Gaza, Jenin, the West Bank, all of Palestine, because what they're going through is absolutely horrendous. Your voice is the answer. Your voice is the solution. All right, so go ahead and give a like to the stream. I know that was a very heavy topic, but I wanted to make sure I got into that because, you know, a year ago, yesterday, a year ago, Israel bombed Bethlehem. The city that Jesus was born in was bombed a year ago. And yet you have millions upon millions upon millions of people in this country celebrating the birth of a Palestinian Jew. And yet Palestinian Jews, Palestinian Muslims, Palestinian Christians, Palestinian atheists, whatever, they're being massacred. They're being bombed as we speak. And yet we're celebrating the birth of a Palestinian Jew. It's wild. We can celebrate the birth of one of their own, and yet we're going to condone the massacre? Just keep your voices strong in that regard. Let me go to the Rumble chat to see if we have any chats, any Rumble rants, what have you. Okay, well, looks like we're good there. So thank you very much. Let's go to the Rockfin. All right. Oh my goodness. Wait, did I? Okay. All right, we got one on Rockman, and then we'll get into the next segment once I get to after this. Actually, I'll thank the patrons next. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin. Roger Meadows, he says, JB, I hooked you the hell up in the DM for your next show, baby. You know, big bro, I got you. Are you calling me big bro? You're the older one, though. Well, okay, yeah. Physically, I'm a big back, but thanks, Roger. He says there are 4 different stories that link together that you can do as one big story. I'm going to have to take a look at that. I'm going to have to look at it. Thank you very much for that, Roger. Okay, so I'll take a look at that. Because wait, I'm not going. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to do a show next Tuesday because I have dialysis next Tuesday. However, that doesn't mean that I can't do a New Year's Day show, which is next Wednesday, because I don't have dialysis that day. So that might just be the first show of the year. All right, Roger, I see you. All right, let's go into the rest of the chat. I love you, Raj. Love you. Oh, by the way, I got to talk to Sergio as well, just to let you know. So got to wish him a Merry Christmas. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that, we still chat. So all right, let's go into the rest of the chat. Desert Mantis says, I sometimes force myself to watch Gaza videos. It gets hard, but I respect the Palestinians so much. I feel I need to. There's a balance where you continue to keep your sense of outrage, and sometimes it doesn't mean always watching the videos, but because you don't want to get desensitized to it either. As a Black American, we know what it's like to get desensitized to seeing our own being massacred, right? It still keeps happening. Look, I'm going to be talking about a teenage boy, Black boy, that was gunned down by police. I'm gonna talk about it on Sunday on RBN. There's a risk of us becoming desensitized to even our own, right? So of course, if we can become desensitized to our own, then we can also become desensitized to the genocide, the massacre, the destruction was going on to people in Palestine. It could happen to many of the different groups that's going on around the world, right? I think the point is we continue to keep it in our minds and continue to keep forcing the narrative, forcing rekindling that outrage so that we fight against the system that continues to perpetuate this violence without it watering down our humanity. I don't know. Does that make sense? I'm trying to explain it the best way I can, but we just don't want it to desensitize us to the atrocities. But at the same time, we don't want that secondary trauma to affect us so much that we get to a point where we burn out and walk away. I hope I made sense in saying that. But that's how I feel. Radical Education says, imagine being an EMT in Gaza or any other brave medical workers. May hope, love, and bounty follow their souls forever. I didn't mention them, but you're absolutely right. The EMTs and paramedics that have to see the carnage in front of their face. Oh my gosh. Thank you very much for that perspective too, Radical Education. I appreciate it. Yeah. Kate Mack says radical PTSD for sure. Absolutely. Bender says Israel knows that they're deleting doctors and are also deleting people those doctors would treat. And this is the point. The point is that they do not want anybody to survive. Their position is no survivors, no matter who it is. To them, the 4 babies that froze to death, to them, that's potential Palestinian resistance fighters that are no longer here. So therefore, to them, that's a victory. When I tell you right now, they are creating far more Palestinian resistance than they could ever dream of from this. For those 8, 9, and 10-year-olds right now, if they're not martyred, give them 10 years. And 10 years, oh my God, if Israel's still in existence, the IOF has doomed themselves to destruction. Because of look what you did. You know what this reminds me of? How a lot of racist white people, especially the slave owners, how they knew what they were doing was wrong, and they were afraid. They were in deep fear of if we got our freedom and we Black people rose up, what would happen to them? This is exactly the same thing. This is the same exact thing. This is what the government of Israel is afraid of. Let me go here. Teresa says we must never forget what happened in Gaza and who supported it and perpetuated it. Look, let me tell you something. You guys need to keep in mind all the people who who ended friendships with you over this, who continue to defend Israel over this, keep that in the back of your mind. Now, if they come back and say, I was wrong, I was completely, I misjudged, then okay, right? You can bury the hatchet, let bygones be bygones. But the people who still continue to defend Israel, and some of those people who consider themselves to be in independent media who try to both sides it, keep that in the file in the back of your mind. File that away. Right? Remember that. Let's do a couple more and then we'll move on. Jackie says detestable. This table. I think you meant detestable. Either way. Says the problems compound in ambiguity. Without quality adherence to lawful behavior, there is no negotiation. Meanwhile, the Palestinian resistance has actually come to the table for ceasefire, but Netanyahu and his Likud party and the government, they don't actually want a ceasefire. They want the entire population of Gazans, Palestinians, wiped off the face of the earth. That's what they want. Nicolette says Germany just sent 30 million euros worth of weapons. Of course they have. And let's go to one more. Edward says Genocide Joe does not care about Palestine. All he ever cared about was himself. Yep, absolutely. Oh, this is a good one too, Roger. I'll do this one more. Said this is why our Second Amendment rights were never protected after Civil War. Instead, they were violated. All right. So with that being said, let's get into thanking the patrons. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this work because literally you guys are keeping my lights on. Oh boy. Y'all some real ones. All right, so let's go into the patrons. Thank you very much for all the work, for the help you guys give in order to keep this channel going. So here are the tiers that we have here. We have Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters, Comrades, Solidarity, and JB members. And of course, I thank these members on a recent reading, but I'll do it again. Thank you to Robin Reichart and Brandy Weaver. Thank you so very much for being new members on the channel and helping me to be able to keep this channel alive. Like hope, keeping hope alive and keeping the channel alive. So thank you so very much. And by the way, just to let you guys know, my channel is demonetized. So if you like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. So thank you very much to all of you for that. Now, let's get into the next subject, shall we? We're going to ask some questions. So 2024 Q&A, whatever questions you guys have, I'm going to answer here. Man, I really need to shave. I'm thinking about chopping my beard off and let it regrow. I wonder how that's going to, I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I haven't decided on it yet, but we'll get to it. So there were some things that I had saw. And if you guys have any questions that you guys would like to submit to me, go ahead and start putting in the chat so that I can answer those promptly. But one of the things that I saw that I wanted to talk about was a couple of things in regards to recent stories that have happened. One of them, I'm going to start off with this. Now, it's not a big news story, but I want to give my thoughts. And I didn't listen to this on purpose because I wanted to do it with fresh ears and then react. So let's go to Marianne Williamson really quick, shall we? She put this out earlier today, and I just want to react to this. And as we, react to it, what's the trend now? We listen and we don't judge. I'm judging. I'm sorry. I'm gonna judge. So we'll this is going to be interesting. Let's go, guys.
On January 20th, 2025, President-elect Trump will once again be president of the United States, plus Republicans will be in control of both the House and the Senate. For those of us who wish to be part of a passionate, fierce, but loyal opposition to what the Republicans are bringing forth in 2025 and beyond, there's a lot for us to think about. I feel that in order for the Democrats to rise like a phoenix from the ashes of our electoral defeat, we need to look at more than just the outer issues such as data analysis and field organizing and fundraising. We need to transform. In a way, we need to reinvent the Democratic Party in order to counter what MAGA is bringing to the table. There's a collective adrenaline rush in all of that. And we have to create our own massive psychological and emotional appeal for the American people. I understand why we lost it. I understand because I've traveled extensively throughout this country and I've seen how much pain there is out there. I've been up close and personal with people who didn't have health care, who couldn't survive on just one job, who were so depressed about so many of the conditions in their lives that were, in fact, at least indirectly due to bad public policy. And too many of them didn't feel like the Democratic Party had their back. I get how people didn't know that. And today, I am announcing I'm running for DNC chair because I feel that I can bring a level of expertise to the process of lifting up this possibility of victory over the next 2 and 4 years in a way that will not occur if we are only looking traditional means of politicking in order to make that happen.
Okay, so running for DNC chair. Here's my issue with that. Actually, there was a lecture being done by Professor Richard Wolff. Many of you guys know who he is. He is an economist, right? More specifically, he is a Marxist economist. And one of the things that was asked upon him after this lecture was about revolution. And one of the things I think that is important that he said was essentially that those of us who are revolutionaries, those of us who are Marxists, socialists, communists, what have you, right? We allow for people to kind of participate, not allow, but we will stand by while people do reforms, not because we believe that the reforms will work, but that the reforms will be a lesson and showing that reforms in capitalism do not work and that revolution is the only solution. Now, here's my duty as somebody that is a communist. The reforms have been happening over and over and over again, and yet here you have somebody trying to do a reform over again, and yet they're still saying, oh, we can just reform the Democratic Party. Just put me in, coach, and I can do it. Here's my issue with that. The experiment is over. It's done. There's no changing it. We know what the Democratic Party is. There's no experiment that could be done in order for us to see if we can still do it. No, that horse is dead. Stop beating it with the bat. We've seen it with Jamal Bowman. We've seen it with Cori Bush. Look what happened with them, right? AOC is just this close to having a Bob and having two $12,000 ice cream, riddled fridges filled with chocolate ice cream. She's this close, just that close, right? She's this close to becoming Mama Bear. You have Rashida Tlaib that continuously, despite her people being massacred day in and day out, she sticks with the party that still continues to do the massacre of her people. I don't know what the word coon is in Arabic, but she's starting to look like one for them, right? Because I look at a lot of people in the Congressional Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus the same way that a lot of Palestinians look at Rashida Tlaib. I look at people like Pramila Jayapal and Bernie Sanders. I look at all of them and say, the experiment that you tried to do failed. And yet now you have Marianne Williamson continuing to try to do this reformist type of attitude when we know that, number one, the Democratic Party is a private organization. It is not a bureaucratic institution. Look at the lawyers' debates. Stabby Sabs actually interviewed them. They did the DNC fraud lawsuit. The DNC actually can pick whoever it wants and choose whoever it wants without the advisory or the orders of the rank and file members of the party. Therefore, they can choose whoever the hell they want to either lead the party, which means that Marianne Williamson is not going to be the one to do it, or they could choose to have her run, but they're not ultimately going to choose her in the end because it's going to be the people in the upper echelons of the Democratic Party that are going to choose the person who they want, who is a crony of the corporate dictators. They're not going to choose her. Let's be real. Let's keep it a buck. They're not going to choose Marianne Williamson because her sympathies to the working people are too high. And I argue, as a person that is among the proletariat, her sympathies aren't enough. But to them, they're too high. She's too close to being like Bernie Sanders. And they'd rather lose to MAGA than to have Bernie Sanders. Look at 2016. They'd rather that. Why? Because whoever's on the Republican side is also a crony of the corporate dictators. So this whole type of reform really isn't going to work because we want you and your eyes to be open. Oh my God, reform really doesn't work. So what's the solution? And then that's when we got to do mutual aid, build dual power, build our communities so that we can actually circumvent the capitalist system and actually have something more tangible for us so that we can get what we need as workers, as people. As a Black American and a communist, I want reparations for my people, but it's not going to happen in this capitalist system. So therefore, in order to be able to get the reparations for my people, I'm going to have a huge overhaul and completely dismantle the system. Because the reparations is owed, and we're going to get our reparations. I don't give a damn what you say. Come hell or high water, we're going to get it. But in order to get it, we're going to have to dismantle the system. So guess what? While I applaud the people who continuously fight in the system in order to get reparations, I'm going to stand behind them 10 toes down, right? Just like I stand behind the people who push for Medicare for all, I'm going to stand 10 toes down behind them too. But I'm also going to do the work of, just in case it doesn't happen, right? We're dismantling the system so that we can ultimately get what we're owed as workers. You are owed a nationalized healthcare system. You are owed housing for every single person in this country. You are owed universal education. You are owed a livable planet. And you're not going to get it through reform. Reform doesn't work. I don't care how you shape a pile of shit, reforming it into chocolate ice cream, mashed potatoes. I don't care if you freeze dry it. I don't care if you turn it into pellets. It doesn't matter. It's still shit. Miss Williamson, this is what you're doing. You got to walk away from the party, ma'am. You're wasting not just your time, but the time of very desperate people. My goodness. Let's finish.
I know how deeply we need to listen to people. I know that we need to hear people. We need to humble ourselves. We need to know what it was that made people feel that their wallets were more important than their pain. We need to understand what it is that has made people emotionally and psychologically disconnect from a sense that the Democratic Party was part of a great legacy in American history, and that involvement with the party would be a way that they too could connect. I want to help people know what's going on in politics. I want to help people connect with the political issues that are going on in their lives in a very real and personal way. And I want to help people understand that by connecting to the Democratic Party, they can truly make a difference. That is the kind of skill set and understanding and spirit that we need in the next chair of the DNC. That's why I'm running. That's why I feel that I can help transform the party, reinvent the party, because the politics of the past will not be enough to take on the politics of the present and the future. Donald Trump is a 21st century political phenomenon, and we need to become one too.
Actually, he's not. Donald Trump is not a 21st century phenomenon. Do I got to bring the book out again? Donald Trump is exactly what America is. There's no phenomenon there. Look, shout out to Margaret Kimberly. She put out a book called Presidential Black America in the Presence. Guess what? Donald Trump is not a phenomenon. He is the usual. He is the rule, not the exception. See, this is the problem. So many people go, oh my God, well, Donald Trump is so different. He changed politics. And I'm just like, no. What was the Electoral College makeup when Ronald Reagan won in the 80s? Donald Trump is not the exception. Donald Trump is exactly what America is. He's just a personification of America that we see in front of our faces, and we realize that we don't like our own reflection. That's what he is. Donald Trump is what we see is what the world sees out of every other president that has ever existed, including Obama. He is what the world sees Americans as. So that's one of my pushbacks. Let me continue.
And I feel that if I'm in there, we'll meet him toe to toe. Same kind of energy, same kind of adrenaline, same kind of political and emotional power. And then we will have a very good year a couple years from now, even better year 4 years from now, because Donald Trump will have met his match. Thanks.
No, I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. Number one, you're not going to make the DNC chair. And even if you were somehow to get in there, you're not really going to change the party, because the party is not ran by the DNC chair. The DNC chair is a figurehead position. Who runs the party? What did Butch Ware say? Who funds you, runs you? Mm-hmm. Do you really think that you're going to be getting your marching orders from the people, Miss Williamson? Miss Williamson, you're old enough to be my mother, but I've never seen somebody your age so naive to think that you'll be able to run the DNC and yet they will be listening to you? Ma'am. Oh, ma'am. I'm old enough to be your kid, and I can see through the BS. I just wish you did too. And I'm not saying that she's being nefarious or anything like that, right? I do honestly believe that she believes what she's saying. My thing is you're not hurting enough to be tired enough. You're not uncomfortable enough to be tired enough. You're like a person that constantly gets cheated on, but you keep making excuses for the cheating. It's like, what? They didn't really love that person, and it was just a fluke after it happened 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. It's just, they'll change. My sweet summer child. Mm-mm-mm. The rest of us are tired. And like they said at the DNC convention, when it comes to the Democrats, we're not going back. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that she really means this, or is it just, do you think it's a grift? I would like your opinions on that, because I'm quite curious. But yeah, it feels like, I don't know. It feels like she does really mean it, but I feel like she's deeply, sadly mistaken. Go ahead and give a like, and then we'll move on to the next thing that I want to, look at. But yeah, I feel like Adam says it's kind of a grift. I think I kind of think it's a grift. Justin says complete grift. Kate says no, she just thinks she's saying what we want to hear to elect her. Yeah. Charlie says Marianne completely lost me when she said Israel has a right to self-defense by Felicia. Yeah. If you're an occupier, no, you don't have that right to occupy. I agree, basically. Hooper says policies. I mean, that's what I'm saying, Hooper. Thank you. What policies are you going to be pushing? And please don't tell me that you're going to also, I'm talking to Marianne Williamson, please don't tell me you're also going to regurgitate the same thing that, well, Israel has a right to defend itself by your DNC chair and expect young people to come flocking back to the Democratic Party because you're sitting there condoning a state that is devoted to genocide. It's condoned genocide ever since its birth in 1948. You mean to tell me that you're going to sit there and say that and expect us to come back to a party that doesn't give a damn about us? Really? I don't know. Oh gosh. Okay. Oh damn. Some pushback. Janice says, JB, you give her too much credit. There's no possible way she believes the words coming out of her mouth. A 12-year-old could see what the Democratic Party is. Am I being too kind? Maybe. Look, in my defense, Janice, I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt, but am I being naive in that? You know, Janice, you come from a very good, honest place of critique. So just let me know if you feel I'm being a little too generous. Okay. Because I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but I feel like it's her naivete that's doing this. But if you think it's something more nefarious, I probably can concede your point. I'm not gonna. It's not a hill I'm willing to die on. I'll just put it that way. Makes sense? It's not a hill I'm gonna just like fall on the sword for. But yeah. Oh damn, Kenneth. Reminds me of smoking from Friday. I'm sorry, Kenneth. You win. You win. Okay. Oh my God. Next thing you know, Big Worm coming in there with the hair rollers. If you don't have my money or my bud, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. Thank you very much for that, Kenneth. Al Harris says the orb envelops everyone, no path through existing institutions, the institutions as they are now. Thank you very much for that. Oh my God. Oh my gosh, you guys are vicious. Kiva Gruber says she's on a mission for mystic Jesus. Oh my God. Pine Martin. Yeah. Thank you so very much. Janice says, JB, you're just too very nice, which is wonderful quality to have. She is not nice, though. She is a grifter who is basically astroturfing. And Pine says, JB, I think Janice has a point. Well, I'll concede. Okay. I looked at this. I was just like, I know she's not about to do this. It's like being a glutton for punishment. Let me check the rock fin. Wait, what? How did I log out? What? Is my rock fin still going? Because I didn't log out. That's some BS. What the heck? Well, it looks like it's still running. Okay. Okay, looks like we're good. Okay. That was weird. Okay. We're good on Rockfin. Let's do check the Rumble. I don't think she'll ever come on my show to discuss it anyway. Also, I'm part of RBN, and she ain't coming on. But let me go to a couple questions. Here we go. First one, Roger says, okay, here's 2 questions. When are you going to watch the rest of that series? And question 2, what oil were you frying that chicken in? Okay, so yes, I'm going to watch this series. Okay. I'm going to watch it. I'll watch it tomorrow. Okay. While I'm on dialysis. The oil that I was frying the chicken in was light olive oil. Yep. Look, I'm gonna tell you all right now, being as healthy as you possibly can is an act of resistance, and I'm gonna resist all the way. So if it means, using the healthy fats whenever I can, yeah, that's what I do. I mean, we literally go through extra virgin olive oil quite frequently through this house. Like a lot. So I don't and wait, when was the last time I fried chicken? Maybe July? I think it was the last time I fried chicken. I think so. I think that was the last time I fried chicken. I think if I'm gonna fry anything next, it'll probably be fish. Maybe fish next time. That might be good. But I don't fry. I hardly ever fry. But it came out good. It was golden brown. And then as soon as it was done, because the key is you put on a timer. And then with the chicken, like chicken legs, you do it 15 minutes. So 7.5 minutes one side, then turn it over and do 7.5 minutes, right? But then once it's done, you put it on a rack so that it can drain, but you put the rack inside the oven on like a low temperature so that it stays crispy, but the cooking still kind of continues a little bit. So then by the time it's done, right? It's not just right at the edge of done, but it's slightly overdone, right? So that, you can, because look, one thing I'm afraid of is undercooked chicken. I do not like my chicken you shouldn't eat undercooked chicken, by the way, but I just don't want it like right at doneness. I don't want it like right at 165 internal temperature. I'm just like, can we go 10 degrees over to 175? Yeah, please, thank you. It's not, and plus it's dark meat. We're not talking about white meat, right? Because white meat dries out. But baby, yeah. Thank you very much for that, Roger. Justin says, question for you, JB, and so glad to see you back home. Thank you. Says, with your time working on Jill's campaign, do you have any different thoughts, feelings about the Green Party? Would you do it again? All right, so I'm going to answer the last question first. Would I do it again? Probably not. Because it is a lot of work. Now, I will say this. The people who I worked with, as well as the people who were over me, like communications director, campaign manager, Jill, Butch, all of them. they were very kind and they were very accommodating. It's the nature of the job is still a lot, right? It's like having a job where it's it's rough, but at the same time, all your workmates and all your bosses and everybody, you love them. They're great, right? It's just the job is hard. You know what I'm saying? Now, as far as pay, they made it worthwhile because Jill walks the walk and talks the talk when it comes to things like a living wage. She does, right? So that was not an issue, right? Pay was not an issue, as well as the way I was treated was definitely not an issue. It's the nature of the job. You have to be more detail oriented. I'm not the most detail oriented person. Like my co-press director, Sam, was way better at the job than me. And this is why sometimes I feel like I felt like I was slacking, even though I wasn't, because he was so good at what he did that I felt like he was carrying me. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. Different thoughts, feelings. Working on a campaign is a lot of work because you're literally running to run the country. And I have a newfound respect for the work that goes into campaigns with people, and that was just a third party with a fraction of the resources that the Democrats and Republicans have. Can you imagine just, geez, how much work it would have been if the Green Party had more resources and also got more coverage, because more coverage means more questions from more people, more questions and more desires for appearances. Being a press director, that would have made the job even more harder. So that's a lot of work, man. You know? So yeah. And then on top of it, one of the biggest lessons I actually learned was make sure your candidate is prepped. Because I did a missed opportunity on that one on one occasion. I didn't prep her like I should have. And that was my fault. And I feel like it is a collective effort. It's more than just the candidate. It is the campaign that also helps advise and guide the candidate. Now, one thing I will say, though, is that sometimes there are different variables that you feel like you have the right answer for things, but it's not, how can I put it? It's not 100% absolute right answer. Sometimes the right answer is relative, but it's also circumstantial. So you may want the candidate to go in a specific direction, but then you have other people within the campaign that also have different opinions. And some of those people who have differing opinions may outnumber you. And it pushes the campaign into a different direction. I don't want to get into specifics, but I do think that I wish my voice carried more weight, but I was brand new and I was a junior member. But at the same time, there was a lot of enthusiasm for what I inputted into the campaign too, which I deeply appreciate. So it's not like I was silent, but it's just I don't think my voice carried as much weight. And part of it's because I'm the new guy, you know? But at the same time, there was definitely consideration for what I said. So I wasn't silenced at all, which I appreciate, you know? So you have to kind of take it in that way, you know? But there was a lot of kindness and a lot of compassion with people in the campaign too. That's one thing I definitely will say. There's a lot of kindness and compassion. And a great group of people, really, really solid and lovely group of people that if it wasn't in, like, if I could be part of the campaign again, if I can do a campaign again, I might do social media rather than press director, you know, because that probably might be more my speed. I don't know. I just have a lot of respect for people who are in communications because they do a damn hard job, right? Anyways, yeah, thank you very much for that question, Justin. That was. Roger says, "Here's another question: why you got that liberal suspect racist white lady who thinks she's the picture for the Oakland A's on your screen?" At this point, I'm just messing with you. Have fun. Pitcher for the Oakland A's? Really? Roger, you slay me. Yeah, Ileana says Butch Ware is definitely running for governor of California for the Green Party. Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting thing. I find that if he can get enough, well, first of all, if he really wants to push hard in California, he needs to bring the Black community, and particularly the Black American community, along with him. That will be heavy. Because, and he's already halfway there, number one, because he is a Black American, number one. Number two, the reparations argument, right? Hammer that home. And then on top of it, hammer home solving the underlying issue of undocumented immigration. That's something that I think that he really needs to do. Like, just those two, he'll have Black Americans right behind him. You know, LA, Oakland, especially, like, you'll have, the Bay Area and LA, it'll be, Los Angeles, Watts, Long Beach, you'll have Compton, you'll have the Black Americans behind you. Because the thing is, it's like, if you're pushing for that, as well as, attacking the underlying issues of undocumented immigration, then I think that he could push. I think he can actually, but it's not just reparations, right? Because here's the thing about us Black people, especially Black Americans. We also care about healthcare, housing, education, public safety, like all these things. We care about just all the same things, right? It's not just prison reform, right? Because the thing is like, we're forced into that. We can sometimes be pigeonholed into certain policies, right? Where in reality, we're humans, right? We have all the same issues that we want solved too. So if he pushes for, a single payer healthcare system in California, that'll be a huge boom to him. Reparations will be a huge boom. Reparations for freedmen, right? And you have to delineate, because that's, that's how it's going to be successful, is if you delineate, right? And then he's also going to have to tackle making sure that he tackles the underlying issues of undocumented immigration, meaning condemning and pushing for the ending of the drug war, right, within California, as well as pushing for and fighting against whatever administration. It doesn't matter if it's a Republican or Democratic administration federally, against the sanctions and the destabilization that happens in these countries that cause people to flee in the first place. And then on top of it, a living wage, a true living wage in California. So, of course, according to the Out of Reach program, a true living wage in California, I think, is somewhere north of $47, $48 an hour. So he would have to push for that. And people will say, well, oh my God, if you have people with a $48 an hour minimum wage, the prices are going to go up. It will, but it's not necessarily going to be a bad thing, because what's going to feed into it is that the more people make, they'll also be able to spend that money, and then it will become a feedback loop within California. And then also, because you have so many rich people in there, I would raise taxes on the wealthy. Look, swing for the fence. Swing for the fence. Look, Silicon Valley, y'all about to pay. Y'all want to be in my state, y'all going to pay. So there's a lot of different variables that Butch can do in order to push for that. But I really do think that it will be more beneficial for him to tackle some of these things, like, and then housing, focus on the housing first. Try to be the first state that completely eliminates homelessness. I don't ever want to see Skid Row the way it is anymore. Skid Row should not be Skid Row anymore. Right? San Francisco, the homeless rate there, it should not be that. I want him to strike fear in the hearts of people like Nancy Pelosi. Hell, I want him to strike fear in the hearts of people like Barbara Lee. Because I don't think that she goes anywhere near far enough that she should. I want him to make Barbara Lee look like an extreme right-winger. I want him to make her look like she's not doing nothing for the people. Put her to shame. Make it so that the exploitation is drastically lowered. Because he's not going to be able to get rid of it all, because that's going to take an entire systemic dismantling and rebuilding of a new system. But if he can do what he can in California, and also push for things like making it a truly direct democracy ballot initiative state, so that, it is, for the most part, but strengthening that and pushing for more ballot measures that the people can decide democratically. I think that would be great. And the thing is, it's like a lot of these things that he could do, some people who are considered to be on the right, they actually would be on board for a lot of these things. Because once you start to get to the policy aspects, that left and right dichotomy is not really going to matter. It's going to be, oh, well, he's for the workers. See what I mean? But yeah. Roger says, okay, you get a perfect score for frying in light olive oil, but extra virgin is the best olive oil to fry other than that avocado high heat oil. I heard that frying high heat and extra virgin is not good for you. That's what I heard. And I heard that it kind of gets rid of the beneficial properties within extra virgin olive oil. That's the reason why I fry it in light olive oil. Because you know what I'm saying? I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but yeah. Oh no, you're gonna have me to what? No, Roger. Here's another question. When is social media going to let up on Fat Joe? I've seen them call him Sloppy Joe, Floppy Joe, Fat Joe, and the Tether Squad. Lean back. Lean back. Look, okay. All right, Roger. Okay. Listen, I will say this. I do not like the language and name calling that a lot of Black Americans do when it comes to foreigners. There seems to be a xenophobic undercurrent that I do not approve of, right? However, that is also a response to the anti-Blackness that happens from foreigners that happen to be non-white. Anti-Blackness sometimes comes from Black immigrants. Anti-Blackness comes from some Latinos. Anti-Blackness comes from some Asians. It does happen, and I don't like that either. So with that being said, I think there needs to be a coming to the table from all groups, right? And like, for instance, Latinos, y'all need to have a conversation among you guys with the anti-Blackness, because that is absolutely unacceptable. And you guys have your history with anti-Blackness, especially in the casta system. Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, especially y'all, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, and Cubans and Mexicans, y'all gotta get that. You guys have to take that white supremacy that the Spaniards instilled into your cultures, and y'all gotta get rid of it, right? Same thing with the anti-Blackness from people like, for instance, from India. And it's not all, right? But of course, they have a caste system, and a lot of them also are, the darker Indians are also looked down upon, and the Muslim Indians are looked down upon in India. So y'all got to get rid of that too. But a lot of times, the United States, the legal aliens that they allow to come here are usually the ones who embrace whiteness more than the ones who are on the lower rung of the economic ladder in their respective countries. And so they will embrace whiteness because they have more privileges, and then they're able to come here, versus the ones that can't afford to come here. They don't necessarily have the anti-Blackness that their more wealthier counterparts do have. Unfortunately, they're not the ones that are coming here. It's the ones that are on the upper echelons in their society that are able to come here. And there has to be a conversation about that too. Because if we really want to be able to have more solidarity and unity, there needs to be this divorcing from anti-Blackness, right? Black Africans and Black people from, the West Indies. There needs to be a respect for what Black Americans have went through in order to be able to come here. But at the same time, there also needs to be a mutual respect between us and them, because they went through a lot of the same things that we're going through, right? Hell, Chicago was founded by a Haitian. So there needs to be a respect and know that, we're all basically part of the same family. We just got dropped off different parts. But at the same time, Black immigrants do not get upset when we delineate when it comes to programs like reparations, because we actually have to talk about the lineage base. It's not race based. So it's like, we stand with you when it comes to you getting reparations, what have you. It could be from Portugal, England, France, what have you. We'll stand with you. But at the same time, when it comes to racial justice, that's another battle that we can come together on, but that's not necessarily reparations in the sense that we're talking about. I think with Fat Joe, what he said was out of pocket. And the thing is like, bro, you need to have respect for the culture that birthed the same institution that you made your money off of, right? Because from what I'm hearing, right? And, I have hip hop heads, especially in my family. They will say that it was started by Black Americans, right? That's like, that's like baking a cake, and it's like the Black Americans are like the flour, the sugar, and the baking soda or the baking powder, but then you have additions from other people who ingredients to create hip hop as a whole. And the thing is like, you can't do it without the foundation of Black Americans, right? And so, of course, the separation is really I don't want to say an overcorrection, but it's a response to the anti-Blackness that happens from different groups. And let's remember that a lot of these groups would not be here if it weren't for the civil rights, the civil rights efforts that were made by our people here in this country. So they would not be able to come. So I think it's indicative for us to really come to the table and try to see ourselves in each other, so that we can come together and fight against the system that marginalizes all of us. And Fat Joe should have been more thoughtful in his response. And I'm gonna be all real with you, Math Hoffa, you should have checked him right there. You should have checked him on your show. But you didn't. And the thing is him calling us broke, first of all, that is classist as hell. And slavery was basically a class issue. And chattel slavery was made into a category so that they can tell who are slaves by the color of our skin. That's what it is. It's a class issue that was turned into a racial structure. So for calling us broke, he's wrong for that. And also all the people who he has ever united with in hip hop, they treated you with respect and dignity. And, you know, it shouldn't be that you paint them with a broad brush. I don't think that's right. Because there's some Black Americans who we recognize the contributions of different immigrants to the country. And we're thankful for that. But do not try to blow out our candles to make your light shine brighter. Appreciate the light that we brought, because this country will still be in the dark without us. But at the same time, I would like for us to not paint the entirety of all brown and Black immigrants. I would like for us to not paint them all with a broad brush either, because we don't like it when we get painted with a broad brush. I say try to treat it on a case-by-case basis, because some of them do have deep solidarity with us. Some of them really do care, you know, and want to champion our issues along with theirs. I just think that we can't do with what the racist white people have done in the past, where they saw us all as exactly the same based on the experiences of a few anecdotal experiences. You know, like if somebody says something off color, if somebody does something horrible, right? Like that one immigrant that lit the woman on fire, is that indicative of all immigrants from below our southern border? No. But yet we use that as fuel to say, this is why we need to do mass immigration. We need to, deport, all of them because of the actions of a few. I think that's what it is. I see the blanketing of us doing it to everybody, when in reality we shouldn't, because we don't like it done to us, and it's just not right. But at the same time, recognize that without the efforts of my ancestors, y'all wouldn't be here in order to blanket us with a broad brush either. I think that's important. Let kindness and compassion be your guide. I think that's the point that I'm trying to make. And Fat Joe, from what I'm hearing, allegedly, is that he had a lot of anti-Blackness, and there's probably even anti-Blackness among Latinos that he probably is kind of, allegedly. So he has to sit with that. And the Afro-Latinos need to call him out and call him in, especially on this one. Afro-Latinos, y'all, get your boy. Get your boy. You know what I'm saying? So I know that was I tried to give as nuanced of an answer as I could, Roger. I I was hoping that question wouldn't come up, but it did. But thank you very much. Ugh. I know I'm going to get some. I know I'm going to get some pushback. It's okay. I love y'all anyway. Cooper says, question, how do you envision revolution you mentioned earlier, and what is the role and nature of reparations in that scenario? Revolution starts with education, because you cannot push the idea of it without people realizing why they're in the point that they're in, why they're in the situation that they're in. Everybody thinks that revolution is, firearms and violence. No. What revolution is the teaching of the masses that we can have a better system. Why the system is the way it is, we can have a better system, and how to get there. And then when the people start to do revolutionary things by peaceful means, what ends up happening is the powers that be that have control of the state will use violence to stop the people who are doing it by peaceful means. But the people who are doing it by peaceful means don't just lay down and accept the domination from the state. What they will do is they will defend themselves. So revolution really is changing the system by peaceful means, but also self-defense against an authoritative state that resists against revolution. And the thing is the peaceful means that they're doing it is because no other proper channels all the proper channels have been exhausted. All the ways of doing it through the system have been exhausted. So therefore, this is why dual power is necessary in order to circumvent the system, to build up a new system within the old, and then it outgrows it, and then it becomes the new established order. The problem is the old order does not want itself to be extinct. So therefore, it will use violent means. Right now, we have multiple cop cities that are being built. Every single time we try to use our First Amendment rights to speak out against the system, you have police that are knocking us in the head with their billy clubs, right? And then on top of that, look, they're trying to ban means of communication like TikTok. So this is what happened with the Black Panther Party. There was a budding attempt for revolution by peaceful means, but the system said, you know what? We're going to use violent means to crush them. And that's why the Black Panther Party said, okay, we're going to defend ourselves. This is why they defended against racist cops within their streets, because that was a revolutionary act to stop the boot of the system from being on their necks. So it wasn't they were inherently violent. It's that they were responding to the violence with self-defense. That's why it's called the Black Panther Party, for self-defense. It is a self-defensive thing. What is also self-defense is housing for everybody, because you're preventing violence of homelessness. Having free and inclusive healthcare for all, that is a resistance against violence. Making sure everybody has healthy food to eat is a resistance against violence. So having adequate and proper and thorough education for all is a resistance against violence. And so that is what it is meant by true revolution. True revolution is those of us who are using our gifts, using the tools that we have in order to teach people why they're here, how they got here, why they're here, what can be done to change it, and then also encouraging people to go about and doing those changes. And that's what makes revolutionaries dangerous, is the ability to teach and to move the masses into something better, away from the old order that keeps us exploited. And so what is the role of reparations in that scenario? Number one, the reparations fight for American descendants of slavery or freedmen needs to continue to keep going. It has to, because it has to keep it in the forefront of our minds. Because the Civil War in the United States was a class struggle to take Black people out of the jaws, relatively out of the jaws of chattel slavery, and put us into a little bit above chattel slavery, which is wage slavery. We're all still wage slaves. Let's be real. With the exception, of course, the exception in the 13th Amendment, you have people who are in prison who are still chattel. That's what it is, right? I've talked about it before on this channel, and in recent news came out in CNN about people who basically work as chattel in restaurants, and there's ones that work in many different industries out here in the United States. And so that has to be kept in the forefront of our minds, because that is a class issue. Reparations is a class issue, because reparations means that we are getting back the surplus value that our ancestors created, that is owed to them because of the work that they did to build this country to make it what it is. And any Marxist worth their weight in salt would stand by, and they would stand with us in our fight for reparations. And in doing so, the corporate dictators will never give us reparations unless the system is changed, because that means that they will be acquiescing power to the workers. This is why the system has to be dismantled. But in dismantling it, we continuously remember, because of the efforts of reparations activists that are doing it right now, oh yeah, we're still owed this. So that when the system is completely changed, then guess what? It will be a system that is friendly to us as workers, to the surplus labor that our ancestors have built, and give us, okay, we're in a new system now. Give me that, because that was never yours in the first place. Let me give it to the people who it actually belongs to. Here's your reparations. Cash reparations, as well as apologies, as well as all the different things that is absolutely necessary to make us at least get back to close to where we were before 1619, essentially. It's not going to be complete, because you'll never be able to recount and give recompense for all the horrors that chattel slavery, Jim Crow, Black codes, all these different things, redlining has done to us. But you can get us closer than what we were before. So that's where reparations falls in it. Reparations would really be a means to fix what was broken by the capitalist system. And that's absolutely necessary. There is no ands, ifs, or buts about it, because it is absolutely necessary in order to be part of a revolution. Reparations has to be part of the revolutionary conversation. I hope that answers it kind of thoroughly. I hope I didn't miss anything, but thank you very much for that. Peace. ET33 says, Fat Joe brought the smoke on himself. He brought up Black Americans trying to protect our culture while saying the N-word. And that's a whole nother thing. I'm trying not to say the N-word anymore. I'm a work in progress. I'm trying to not say it, though it does slip out. But for Fat Joe to say it and constantly defend the saying of it, he wrong. He's wrong. There's, bro, no. You need to listen to the people who have been harmed by that. And if you're not willing to listen to us, then therefore you have no business being in our culture. If you're not willing to respect the people who the culture is about, then you have no business being in our culture in the first place. Get out. I say this if he was in jazz or blues. And that's the funny thing. They always want our rhythm, but they don't want our blues. The thing is like, no, you cannot do that. No. Because imagine us using the S word and we are artists that are in bachata or salsa or merengue. What if we were using the S word? Do you know what I mean? And then when they try to gatekeep, we disparage them for trying to make sure the preservation of their culture is still there. You can't do that, man. You can't do that, bro. You know. Carlos Pena, yeah. Get your affairs in order because we're heading towards World War III. Yeah, I agree. And also what to me, one of the affairs is building dual power and doing mutual aid. Black Ronan says, although it absolutely wasn't his place to do so, I thought Fat Joe was attacking the FBA political movement, specifically not Black Americans in general. Yeah. Unfortunately, that movement is growing. And I say unfortunately because there tends to be this disdain for anyone that's outside of being Black American. But at the same time, I see it more as a response to anti-Blackness as well. It's kind of tough. This is why I don't pay FBA much attention, but ADOS I do, because ADOS, this is why I want to have Yvette Carnell on, is they express solidarity with people who are not Black American, but they still keep in the forefront, our fight is for our people and we need to get that done. But at the same time, we're not going to disparage other people, other groups, because they don't have the Black American status. See what I mean? Of course, then they stand with people who are in the Caribbean that, you know, are fighting for CARICOM, which is basically their fight for reparations from European countries. So yeah, you know, even though, but for all intents and purposes, I am what they would consider a foundational Black American. My fifth great grandfather was a slave born in Essex County, Virginia in 1792, right? I have ancestors that have been here since the founding of this country. So I am, for all intents and purposes, freedman, ADOS, and what you would consider, you know, FBA. I am. And so, with that being said, though, I think some kindness can move us forward, but at the same time, the anti-blackness also has to be addressed too from outside groups. So yeah, it's kind of difficult for me to square that circle right now, but I'm trying. Kate Max says no one should use the N-word ever again, black or white or any other people. And that's a worthy conversation to have. But a lot of people still think that it should be used, but just by certain people who it ultimately affects. Like, for instance, there's some, I'm part of the LGBTQ community, and some gay people will use the F slur, but they'll use it among themselves. They just won't use it. They just don't accept other people using it. I am of the opinion, like, for instance, I do my utmost to never use the B word, but I'm not going to tell a woman, no, you can't use that word. You know what I'm saying? But I try not to use it ever, because I'm not a woman, first of all. Number one is I'm not a woman. Number two is that word has been used to disparage women for decades and decades and decades. And I don't want to be part of that. You know what I'm saying? I have to recognize that I don't have to use it. Like, now, I can still, even if you have a uterus, I'll still call you an asshole if you're being an asshole. But that's as far as I'm going to go. You know what I mean? So it's about respecting people of their marginalized identities, and realizing that you don't have to censor your feelings and everything, right? I think that's something that I try to do, because, of course, look, I'm a dude and I have male privilege, right? I recognize that, and I'm willing to, not censor myself when it comes to different marginalized groups as well, even when they're not around. And that's the point. It's like, are you censoring yourself even when you're not around? Good to see you, Notori. Cobra Commander says, as a fellow white folks, if your family tells you we're part BIPOC, shh, no, you ain't. That means your great-great-grandfather R-worded natives and colonized. Think about it. Yeah. The whole issue of, oh my God, this person's black, but they have family members that owned slaves back in the day. Baby, it was because our ancestors were raped by them. And here's something that a lot of people, because a lot of times, some white people will get mad, when we talk about the slavery issue and talk about, well, we're not talking about the responsibility that they have to dismantle systems and things like that. You got to remember, your white ancestors are some of our white ancestors too. We're able to accept that our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, who was a white man that did some horrible things to our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, in order for her to give birth and have our, fourth or third great-grandfather or grandmother. If we're able to accept that part of our lineage was detestable in what they did, you as a white person, you can accept the detestable things that your ancestors have done too. Because Look, I don't have European in me for nothing. That's also part of my lineage. That's something, look, you're going to have to sit with that and realize the only part that you're going to have to really sit with even worse is that more of your lineage has done that than my lineage has. That's where the difference really is there. But some parts of my lineage, yeah. Right? So you're going to have to sit with that part of your history. And I recommend anybody and everybody to listen to Dr. Joy DeGrew's lecture on post-traumatic slave syndrome, because one of the things that she actually talked about was not just the post-traumatic stress that happens and was carried down by us slaves, but also the desensitizing of our suffering that was passed down on the white side. Something that a lot of people don't talk about, right? You have to get yourself back in touch with your humanity now, because it was stripped away from you from years of racism and white supremacy. Ooh, it's a conversation. It's definitely a conversation. All right. I also wanted to share this. I know I'm going on a little bit long, but I think this is also important. Since we're talking about racial groups and things like that, I wanted to touch on this too. Vivek Ramaswamy, let me, oh, hang on. Actually, you know what? Before I go into that, let me go into the rock thing really quick. And then I'll get into Vivek, because he said some things, and I think I want to address that too. Let's go into the chat. Animator says, beef tallow, JB. Trust me, happy to send you some. Beef tallow. I don't think I've ever had beef tallow, fried in beef tallow before. I don't know. I'll need to talk to my dietitian about that, because that's going to be an interesting conversation. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin Roger. He says, James, tell Corey to stop talking about another run for office in 2 years. What? She is? Says, get her ass to run some damn ballot initiative amendments in Missouri. She's about to defund the cops, right? I mean, I thought she was. Says, copy what Cynthia Brown's doing in Ohio with ending qualified immunity. She's a nurse, runs single-payer healthcare, and building the more government-owned operated medical institutions, facilities, clinics, dialysis, hospitals, and nursing homes. Look, I don't have Cori Bush's ear. I wish I did, but, you know, and I would tell her to do that, as well as if you want to run, don't do it in a Democratic Party. Do it as an independent. And America says, divorce your grocery store, best way to get healthy. Some of us don't have the ability to do that, though, Miss Anna. I wish we did. You know, some of us don't have the access really to farmers markets and stuff like that. We get our food where we can. It's not that easy here, you know. But if you can, then yeah. But I wish more of us could. Thank you very much for this, Roger. He says, okay, here's something that Butch can do regarding ballot initiatives. Push for a robust, competitive public financing of ballot measures that would guarantee a fully subsidized minimum of $1,500 weekly. That is before the small dollar donations up to $300 kicks in, where it gets multiplied on a tiered basis. Another improvement to the process he can do is extend the petitioning window from 6 months to 18 months. Everybody do a search on DJ King Mario and DJ Face and DJ Cool D. Is it Kumo D? Or I might be wrong, but thank you very much. He says it was them American freedmen who were doing it 3 years before the so-called official start of hip hop in August of 1973, with Kool Herc, who was in the Southwest Bronx and used to travel to the Southeast Bronx, Rosdale Park, to watch DJ King Mario. Herc made it clear that he had to assimilate, adopt to our culture, music, not vice versa. Wasn't it other Black Americans, even before that, I heard, that really started hip hop? Hip hop was even before that in the 70s. I'm talking about like 1930s and 40s that were doing rap, right? I heard like Cab Calloway and people like that were actually rapping too. Like it goes back far. It just didn't really ignite until the 70s. But it was there. It was definitely there. I remember groups, like old school groups in the 1950s that were rapping. I remember seeing videos about that. Anyways, Anna Mayer says, I love you all very much. Fly, hug everyone you meet if they are receptive. Yes, I am a big hugger. Says, every time you touch a human, your vibration increases for both of you. Yes, I am a big hugger. If y'all meet me in real life, just know that I am going to give you a hug, and it's not going to be one of them 2 or 3 second hugs. I'm holding your ass for 20 seconds at least. We are going to get that oxytocin levels up. All right, that's how I am. I'm gonna love you. You should let me love you. Anyway, thank you very much for this. Roger says, Joe dissing Lord Jamar. Oh, he stepped in it. Uh-oh. Lord Jamar is going to fillet your fish. He said, LJ, Lord Jamar said that first time he met Joe at a club in the 80s and 90s, he was just like, yo, who's the white dude with the kufi on his head? They said, that's Fat Joe. He's Puerto Rican, Cuban. And Joe came up to him and said he's a fan of Brand Nubian. Also, Joe works for Jay-Z, us American descendants of slavery, New Yorkers, responsible for letting everyone into our culture where they got too comfortable. Time to gatekeep. Thank you very much for Hemp Car Revolution is Panthers getting people free healthcare, community, and patrolling, employing the homeless, feeding the kids, etc. Yes, that is exactly right, Hemp Car. Appreciate that. Roger says history of the indigenous people in South and Central America, that it was majority dark skinned, but after the Civil War, Confederate soldiers, out of fear of execution by Lincoln, sought refuge in Central and South America, where they took their racist culture with them. There are whole towns dedicated to the Confederacy. I saw in a History Channel, small Brazilian village dancing around the Confederate flag. Also, when they took over the government, they had called for more Europeans to come to South American countries to whiten it up and driving the indigenous Black population just about almost out of existence or push the margins of society. Afro-Argentinians are less than 1% of the population. Those old Confederate soldiers tried to reintroduce cotton, but it all failed because of the soil climate wasn't right. And also in Argentina, I think it was a lot of Nazis fled Germany for Argentina as well, because they didn't want to face justice. So I think that also happened too, Roger. Hempcar says they're spraying organic farms with aluminum aerosol. What? Ah, hell. Oh my gosh. Thank you for that, Hempcar. Jeez Louise, these guys, I'm telling you, these big agriculture, man, they just do some horrible things. Hempcar says now they're making aluminum ready seeds when all of our gardens fail. Oh my God. Giving us these metals and all that BS. Thank you very much for that. He says there's a government document by Kissinger saying that they promote population control in Brazil and India, Pakistan, and places. I heard a lot of Brazilian women were sterilized. We know they did that here to Native Americans. Russell said Americans are the new Indian. Now we have COVID shots that, okay, I got to be careful with this. Says Harriet said it'll be 0 by 2050. Tom Hanks loves Malthusianism. events or the consequences of genetic modifications, and then transcribed and integrated into the genome of human cells. The pandemic jab temporarily impairs semen concentration. Okay, thank you very much for that, Hempcar. Roger Meadow says, we were on our way out of using the N-word when hip-hop was on the Pan-Africanism of X-Clan and KRS-One and Black Panther Power revolutionary rap with Public Enemy's late 80s, early 90s. Then NWA got boosted, bringing the N-word back, only to learn decades later that it was a CIA joint venture with investors and private prisons to embrace crime. Mirrors late 60s and 70s going from Kwame and Hampton to Black exploitation films. Yeah. And then Hepcar says, I'll have to see if Professor Griff mentioned that in his book on CIA and hip hop. I read The Grateful Dead were CIA. What? What? Oh my gosh. U.S. co-opted Cuba's hip hop scene to spark change. Oh my gosh. Oh, snap, y'all. And then Hempcar ends with, it sure seems that there are heavy metals in our food. What in the world are they spraying? Is a good film on it. I haven't verified it yet. And then Hempcar, thank you very much for the tips. Sorry I got off topic for you to read in your comments. It's cool. You share a lot of great information. But yeah, that whole thing, Roger, about, pulling us back, using our music in order to increase the crime rate and things like that. I mean, with the 13th Amendment still making an exception for slavery, as a punishment for a crime. I mean, it makes a lot of sense in pushing us into that direction. So yeah, definitely. All right. So thank you very much for that. Let's go to what I want to read from Vivek Ramaswamy. I want to address this too. I think this is really interesting. So Vivek Ramaswamy, there's been a discussion about immigration and bringing people in from other countries who are qualified. And this is what Vivek Ramaswamy says. It says, the reason top-notch companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans, not native-born Americans, I think he means to say, isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers. And if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college, it starts young. It says a culture that celebrates prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Here's my thing. He has a point, but it's not the point, right? Because ultimately, here's where the issue lies. We have a culture, we have a system where compliance is the name of the game and who runs our education system. See, here's the part where Vivek Ramaswamy actually misses, is that he doesn't realize that the capitalists are the ones that influence our government, that wield our government like a hammer, right? Because government's a tool. It is not, see, it's just like guns don't kill people, people kill people. Hammers can be used to destroy or hammers can be used to build, right? It is a tool. When you have the capitalists that actually own and run our government, they're going to run it so that it benefits them. They need schools to be a center of compliance. They need the schools to be a center of mediocrity to keep us within a certain realm so that we don't figure out that they're playing us. So they need us to be dumbed down in so many ways so that we can continue to keep being good little workers for them. This is why schools are set up the way they are. And so that's part of the culture. The culture that feeds it is capitalism. But people like Vivek Ramaswamy, who have a net worth of over $1 billion, does not want to address that. So he's going to say, well, we just need to focus more on STEM and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, it's the capitalist structure that actually feeds into our education system, which keeps us as compliant little workers. That's the problem. And on top of that, bread and circuses is the name of the game also to keep us within that system. So this is why we have the jock and the prom queen and things like that, because it's bread and circuses. It has to keep us acclimated to that. But because Vivek Ramaswamy is not a worker and he does not have the type of examination and thought process that sifts through what the capitalist system does, he's not going to tell you that, because he's coming at it from a capitalist perspective. Let's continue reading. So he says, a culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World, or Zach and Slater from Screech from Saved by the Bell, or Stefan, over Steve Urkel in Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. In fact, I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity. And their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. Here's the thing. I'm going to say this, and I mean this in the best way possible. Capitalism promotes mediocrity. Because it promotes mediocrity, because it does not want anybody to figure out that the system is rigged so that it keeps the system in place. This is the same system that made it illegal for my ancestors to read and write. That is the promotion of mediocrity. But Vivek does not have the wherewithal to figure that out. Truth, there are some educated fools that come out of these universities. You want to know which ones there are? Capitalism promotes mediocrity. This is why sometimes the best person for the job may not be a cisgendered heterosexual white man. It may be somebody that looks like me, but because I look like me, it has to push me to the side, because then I can promote a system outside of capitalism which will endanger it and make room for a new system. So it needs to keep mediocrity in place in order to maintain its power. This is the issue with the system. Capitalism will never innovate if it is not profitable. That's why it needs mediocrity to keep things the way it is. This is why we still have things like a fossil fuel industry, because it needs mediocrity in order to stay. Because if going green is not profitable, even though it is way better than what we have, it is going to say no, because it's not profitable. It needs mediocrity to stay in order to continue to keep making more profits. Yes, capitalism sucks. But he doesn't want to let you know that, because he's a capitalist. And so he's trying to say, well, we just need to immigrate more people, or we need to stop the mediocrity. But at the same time, he's not willing to get rid of the system that promotes the mediocrity in the first place. He's trying to put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. That's the problem. See, that's the problem with a lot of people like Vivek Ramaswamy, is that he doesn't want to address the underlying issues. He just wants to put a Band-Aid on the problem. Because if you actually attack the underlying issues, there are people who are smarter and more proficient and more effective than Vivek Ramaswamy. And then that threatens his power. All right, so he says more movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chilling, more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. But here's the issue. This is a part of capitalism. Why? Because it pushes this mediocrity. It pushes consumerism. Look, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV. That means that you would literally look. Hang on. Let me ask y'all this question. When a socialist government comes in place, what is the one thing that always rises as soon as a socialist government comes into power? Literacy. Literacy goes up. Why? Because it's a system that does not accept mediocrity. I don't accept mediocrity. That's why I'm a communist. Because mediocrity will be the death of human existence. And yet he wants to keep the system in place that keeps us mediocre, but then he cries about mediocrity. Don't get mad, get glad. Listen, this is the issue. Stop trying to cry about having a muddy sweater when you keep playing in the mud. Get out of the mud, Vivek. And then your sweater or your shirt won't be muddy anymore. But you got to stop playing in the mud in order to not have dirt on that shirt. But you keep doing it. And you keep complaining. Well, maybe if we played this way, or maybe if we played that way, it's still going to happen. My God. Mind you guys, Vivek is only a year younger than me. This man got a college education, got a master's degree. He's a valedictorian. He can't figure this shit out. Come on now. All right, let's continue. Most normal American parents look skeptically at those kinds of parents. More normal American kids view those kinds of kids with scorn. If you grow up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Right? He says, now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s or even now who raised their kids according to one model versus another. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. Here's the thing. Why is China beating our asses, though? What type of economic system does China have that allows for them to go beyond the abilities, go beyond the concept of mediocrity? What are they doing? Vivek? Are they completely capitalist and just having less mediocrity? Their culture fed into having a system that walks away from capitalist exploitation. Now, I will say that they're kind of a hybrid because they do have also some capitalist markets, but it is being overseen by state apparatuses and a communist party. I get that, right? But largely, China is a socialist country. And therefore, they're using the capitalism to build themselves up in that way, but they're also gradually walking away from capitalism as well. But the thing is that they are using their ideas, which build up the entire working class away from mediocrity. Because here's the thing. Do you think how many more kids who are interested in science, technology, math, engineering, how many more of them would be able to succeed if they had housing for all, healthcare for all, universally able to all get education without having a paywall, a price barrier to it. Imagine how many more engineers we would have if those weren't barriers to them. It's not just cultural. See, the material conditions feed the culture. I'm going to repeat that. The material conditions feed the culture. So therefore, you would need to change the material conditions, because if we were able to change the material conditions, imagine how many more children we will be able to have in these industries if we didn't paywall the ability to live. And yet, he still doesn't come to that conclusion yet. That means that, I'm going to be honest with you, the $1 billion that net worth that he has, that's a waste of money. That is a waste of $1 billion, because here he is saying all this, circling around the answer, and I can point the answer to you right there. Give me that $1 billion. I'll use mutual aid and I'll actually build up the community with it, instead of cheating people out of their hard-earned money, in the pharmaceutical sector. This is the guy that says that he wants to head the Department of Government Efficiency, and yet he can't figure out how to efficiently help create a system that will actually be conducive for us to compete on the world stage. And yet I, without a college education, just did it for you. Valedictorian? No, I was a C student, baby. See, this is the thing. Realize, just because they went to college doesn't mean they're the smartest person in the room, because there's a lot of educated fools out there. Let's continue. This is my first time reading this. I have not read this before. He says, this can be our Sputnik moment. Wait. He's right there. Right there. This is our Sputnik moment. People, Sputnik was a satellite that was created by the Soviets. It was revolutionary for its time. It was technological innovation at its time, created by socialists. You want to talk about irony? It's ironic that he's like, we can have our Sputnik moment. Yeah, if you have a system where people are no longer exploited, that's how you get it. But you still continue to perpetuate an exploitative system, Vivek. Therefore, you're not going to have a Sputnik moment in a capitalist system. It's never going to happen. Think, Vivek, think. Use that big brain of yours and actually come to the conclusion that you're not going to do it in a capitalist system, because guess what, chicken butt? That's not how you go about it. Because they literally had a different economic system that addressed the literacy, right? Because literacy rates jumped after the October Revolution. Literacy rates jumped after the Chinese Revolution. Literacy rates jumped when Venezuela started going towards socialism. Literacy rates jumped when Cuba had their revolution. Why? Because socialists actually value smart people. We don't want you to just be a compliant worker. We want you to be better than the last generation. I want Vivek to sit with that. This will be our Sputnik moment. You got to change the system in order to be able to have that, Vivek. My God. How much did you spend on your college education? He says, we've awakened from slumber before and we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up, a culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. Here's the problem, though. The only reason why that mediocrity was put to the side was because the United States was actually trying to compete with communism in order to win the space race. But once we won the space race, what did we do? Did we continue it? What happened when the Soviet Union fell? Did we actually really truly continue exploration and STEM like we did before? No. Why? Because it wasn't profitable to do so. It's only pushed because of profit. And once it's no longer profitable to do so, then we just leave it by the wayside, which means that we continue in mediocrity. That's the problem with capitalism. He says, that's the work we have cut out for us. Rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence, I'm confident we can do it. He's basically saying that Americans basically have a terrible culture, and these countries are able to do this. And that's why we're bringing them in. They're immigrants in to do the job that Americans think that we should be doing. But the problem is you also got to remember, post World War II, which I'm thinking that he is referring to, when we started ramping up on a lot of innovation, was out of the necessity for profit, also out of the necessity for war and the threat of socialism was looming over the heads of the captains of industry, because they didn't want us to realize that we could have something better. So they acquiesced and gave us a few more crumbs just so that we wouldn't ask for more. So that we wouldn't look at countries like the Soviet Union and go, hey, they're doing so much better than us. So they said, all right. We'll give you guys the New Deal. We'll give you guys FHA loans. We'll give you guys, tuition-free college or very low-cost college. We'll give you guys GI Bills. We'll give you all this stuff. Go ahead and go out into the suburbs and then live your life, really nicely for the next 30 years. But we're taking it back. And that's exactly what they did. And guess what? The mediocrity, as soon as they started taking it back, the mediocrity shot up. And then the achievements started going down. Because capitalism, that's the way it works. My goodness. Said the Woodstock this person says the Woodstock generation managed to build aerospace. The one before we went to the moon, America was doing great. Underlying your post that we are all living in squalor until being rescued by HB1s then why did everyone want to come here? That Woodstock generation was born out of a necessity to compete with a better economic system. And so that's why. It was out in that necessity. It was also built out of a necessity for a war economy. That's why it was there. It wasn't out of a necessity for us to better ourselves. It was built out of necessity for profit. But then once, you know, we no longer have another country to compete with that is actually doing better, now it's profit driven. That drive for profit, it stagnates us. Vivek says that version of America, the one that used to embody unbridled exceptionalism, is exactly what we want to return to. That is a point about culture, not immigration policy. But the problem is that that return to it means that you actually have to acquiesce more power to the workers, acquiesce more power to the material conditions, to the proletariat in order to achieve that. The problem is that the greed of the capitalists are resistant to that. So therefore, the mediocrity will return. The mediocrity will stay, actually. That's what it is. But Vivek just doesn't get it. Sad. Anywho, I wanted to, go to that. Let me go to the chat really quick. I know you guys got some things to say. Woo! Oh my goodness. just shit. Oh my gosh. Let me check on the Rumble side to see if I have any comments or Rumble rants. Looks like we're good there. All right, we good. Okay. All right, let's go to the Rockfin. Oh my gosh. Are you guys enjoying the stream? I sure as hell am. I'm flexing muscles that I haven't got to flex in a while. So Hempcar says that was in a conspiracy book by Tim Keith about the Grateful Dead. So I don't know yet. Okay. I jokingly said to a guy that I thought was an agent or a Rockfin that we need to be killing more bacon. The next day, walking to the store, I see a bracelet with a red and blue cop lights on the ground. Ironic, because I think I've seen a retweet with senators suggest we label domestic threats, and they had a pic with a wrist bracelet. It says, "You never work as China's eating our lunch. Communism never works." Oh, Roger, you answered him? Oh my gosh. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Let me take a look at this here. Okay. All right, hang on. Let's take a look. All right, Roger, take him to school. Hang on. He said, "Let me shorten this for you. Those who are not citizens of this country, if they get out of line and start demanding their rights, they can easily get deported or have their H-1B visas revoked or whatever. Reason to other countries invest in citizens when it comes to training in a lot of these information technology jobs. America, both companies and our government chooses not to. It's cheaper to just get someone that's already trained instead of putting money and time into training them yourself. There you go, one and done." Yes, this is also another point. The U.S. does not want to invest because that means that they would have to put heavier investments into colleges and universities, meaning that they would have to decrease the paywall, the price barrier into getting these educations. And so because they don't want to do that, then they'd rather just get them here. And those same people, when it comes to them being exploited, they necessarily can't fight, because if they do fight, guess what? They get deported. So they're just a higher priced version of the undocumented immigrants that we have here. They just have a more legal status, but they can't really fight or unionize against these companies either, because the moment they get out of line, they get sent back. Capitalism. Because capitalism needs some innovation, because it doesn't want mediocrity, but at the same time, it wants to keep mediocrity in the people that's closest to them. But it will pull in more people from abroad. But just so that they can do the job and then they can ship them back. But I think it was Savvy that was talking about a lot of the people who are now learning that are in these STEM fields. They're not staying here to build up the companies here. They're going back home now. They're not building up here. They're building up their home. So now they're using our education and then taking their knowledge back over there. Thank you very much for that, Roger. All right, let's continue on Rockfin, and then I have one more thing I want to share. Roger says, Vivek asks, will be fired faster than the very person fired on the first episode of the first season of The Apprentice. Anyway, with Elon following right behind them. Yeah, and you want to talk about mediocrity? Elon Musk, he's a trust fund baby. What is innovative about that? Nothing. Nothing. All right. Colin says, are pandemic questions not as legitimate as aluminum spray questions? That's not the thing. I have to be careful because, look, I am on YouTube. You see now? If I were on just Rockfin or Rumble, I would be able to answer those more thoroughly, but I can't. I even have to change my language in order to be able to say what I need to say. So, yeah, I'm trying to keep the channel. So thank you very much. You also forget that Russell Brand has also millions of subscribers. Also, he has an N in YouTube. So therefore, even if he were to get in trouble, he literally has a representative in YouTube in order to advocate for him. I do not. I'm not even at 5,000 subs. I'm not safe. I am nowhere near. That's the problem within the system, because people like Russell Brand can actually have people who can talk on behalf of him for him in YouTube, whereas I can't. It's just not, it's not equal. So I have to be careful. If you notice, even people like Savvy, who have miles away more subs than I do, she's over 150,000 subs. She's probably close to 160,000 now. She still has to be careful because she doesn't have an N at YouTube either. I can, my hands are tied and I can only do what I can. I'm sorry. Black Ronin says, I believe the CIA also boosted grunge because they were concerned about the amount of white kids listening to Afrocentric hip hop, acts like Public Enemy and Brand Nubian. Ooh. And also a lot of punk was also very anti-establishment, and they a lot of times they were on the cusp of like anti-capitalist. So a lot of punk also was pushing the envelope against the system too. Ooh, Black Roman, I see you, I see you, I see you. Edward says, true, if you study economics in US schools, it will be capitalism. They won't teach you Marxism because the school wants you to be a good capitalist. If you learn Marxist economy, you will be a good capitalist. A good capitalist will not rebel against the system. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Joe Anthony says they had to, back when it was forced on them, China had two choices: go to war or do capitalism. They weren't prepared for war. Kate says, JB, I love the fact that you are so wise beyond your years. I appreciate you so much. I need to get some sleep, but I'm sending you and my baby Charlie Mac forehead kisses and so much love. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That's very sweet of you. Very kind words. I appreciate you. Cobra Commander says Elon Musk probably has helpers, and if he wasn't rich, he would be able to live on his own. The guy would have trouble figuring out how to dress himself. Yeah. He also needs help in being able to connect with his kid because he's so focused on the woke mind virus that he has no relationship with his own daughter, even though she's trans, because he'd rather have a dead son than a living daughter, which is utterly horrific to me. Like, I'd rather my kids still be alive and healthy. But anyways, that's a whole nother discussion. Tim Price says, yes, came late, but great stream as always. Thank you very much. Roger Meadows says, damn you, Lewis Powell, and your goddamn memo. Yeah. The Lewis Powell memo. Oh my gosh. That dude did a number on this country. Thank you very much, Charlie Mack. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Appreciate it. And let me see. Colin says, I acknowledge the inequities, but the left has to take the lumps as they come. People getting strikes on Gaza, much less restriction on the jab. Here's the problem. How do I continue if I can't reach people on the largest platform? So while I am saying what needs to be said, I have to be measured in how I say it, but the idea still gets out there. And even then, did you know that I also am very careful with my language when talking about Gaza too? I'm not saying what I really want to say. I'm also very, very careful and measured when I say talk about Gaza, because Google owns YouTube. I have to be very measured there too. That's the issue. Because even though technically we have free speech, technically, we're still using the platform of a private corporation. And who has money to be able to build an entire platform with servers and all that themselves? A lot of us don't. So, all right. So let me go to this final thing. That I want to share, because I think, well, actually, I have two things. I wanted to tune into this. This is a special, so I may clip a couple things out of this, but we'll see. Says this person comments, says, "This is my fear with using them. Yes, you should absolutely speak about United." So this is about healthcare.
Well, I worked for United Healthcare for like 9 months. Here's my story. I worked in the medical claims department and went through training for about 2 to 3 months to get out on the claims rep floor, and was taught so many different ways to deny. Every policy is completely different. So there was thousands of policies that we had to kind of memorize, which was impossible, but they demanded it. They were so mean to us. But I'm here to talk about one specific claim. It was a widowed woman calling me at least 2-3 times a day, asking if I knew anything, because they were taking her to court for this. Her husband had just passed from pancreatic cancer, and this was a hospice claim. They were already garnishing her wages, and this was less than 60 days after he died. By the way, she was left with 5 boys by herself. She was a stay-at-home mom her whole life. She was just trying to figure out life. There was absolutely no reason why we couldn't just submit this claim and be done. But they told me every which way to deny this, to get her off of our phone line. It was absolutely despicable. But there was one day that I was approved a certain amount of monies. And that amount of monies could cover one claim. A big one, yes, but it could cover one big claim. Big meaning, I'm pretty sure it was like 400,000, 500,000, a lot of freaking money. But they were expecting this single mom to pay it. Oh, and by the way, they took all of her insurance from her. So she didn't work. She had no health insurance. Her boys didn't have health insurance. It's a clusterfuck, needless to say. I went in, paid it, went on timed out thing, went and told my supervisor that I quit, and I walked out of there. I already had a job lined up, but I could not stand to be a part of that company any longer. Less than 9 months I was in and out. But what I did learn was how to fight insurance companies. What did I need to say? What did I need to submit differently? And then I started to fight insurance from the other side at different medical practices, either in Columbus or Cincinnati. I'm in Columbus now, but yeah, United Healthcare. This was a branch off of United Healthcare called, you ready, UMR. And if you have UMR insurance, you already know the cluster of fucks that they are. And if you work for a provider's office and you have to call them for any reason at all, you have to get a fax first with a code to get to somebody. Blows my freaking mind. That's my story. That's my freaking story. I paid that shit. All right, bye.
Wow. Brian Thompson represented a system that people want to get rid of. This is what he represented. He was a symbol of a system. And this is why people were nonchalant about his death. Or some people were somewhat celebratory, because that meant that the symbol of the system, for at least a short period of time, got their comeuppance. Man, it's crazy. And people wonder why they're in celebration. Because of things like this. I tell you. And that's the problem with the system. I wanted to, react to that. Oh, man. It's the exploitation of the system. Well, with that being said, let me go to my final thing that I wanted to share, because I wanted to share this as well. Because I think it's important that we recognize this in 2022. So I want to read this because I think this is important. Actually, before I do that, let me go to some of the chat a little bit, and then we'll finish off with this. Adam says United Healthcare actually had another CEO that was higher than Brian Thompson, who's CEO of United Health Group. Yeah, I know. It is pretty sad. Colin says, how about this compromise, JB? Have an airborne illness journalist on, people who can cover the pandemic, and just call it mass debilitating disease. It is still unaliving people as well. I mean, I still have to be very careful. I got to be very careful because they will shut you down over it. And I've seen damage, and my channel's already damaged as much as it is, so got to be very careful, but I'd be willing to have a conversation with somebody though. Krista says, where's Nick been? It's a holiday week. So, and his, on RBN, I'm sure he went live this week. So, all right. And let me check the rock then. And then we'll move on to the final. Yeah, I read it, Cobra Commander. I read it. Okay. Jay Hemcar says NPR says they're already spraying iron in the ocean Iron dumping in the Pacific Ocean stirs controversy over geoengineering. Scientists warn iron dump could seriously harm oceans. This is a controversial American businessman dumped over 100 tons of iron sulfate into the Pacific Ocean as part of a geoengineering scheme off the west coast of Canada in July, guarding an investigation. It says mainstream media says that they'll spray sulfur aluminum salts to curb climate, and people saying aluminum in soil in mainstream media says it's organic baby food. We can't wait for what we know is happening. Yeah. Cooper says Jason Black didn't take no holiday. Well, we're not Jason Black. People, have different things, that they want to, people, some of us get burned out, things like that. So, some people want to have a different balance. So, but yeah, there's times where I need to take a break, and I did, especially after the election. I took a break. So let me go to this, because I can feel myself getting really wiped out. Oh, I remember where I was going. And let's take this. So one of the things I wanted to focus on is a way to resist. I think this is indicative of the times that we live in. If you can do this as a way to resist, then please do so. Of course, we can do what we can, but it's, it's something that I think is absolutely necessary. And I think it kind of goes into what we can do. So let's take a look. Says the politics of rest, why your exhaustion sustains oppression and why we struggle. So let's get into it. Now, you guys remember where I actually read the book Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. I even had Dr. Devon Price on, and we talked about this. And I think it's really interesting that we have this discussion. Because a lot of times, we're told that we have to keep on the grind, but could that be helping the system rather than helping ourselves? It says Pat Radical Therapist says, I wrote this post on rest selfishly as a reminder to myself to slow down, to notice what I'm feeling, to let it flow through my body instead of pushing it aside. Lately, I've been struggling with rest more than usual. Pain and trauma have resurfaced, activating parts of me I thought I had moved through. It's left me feeling disconnected from my body and, by extension, my own wisdom. There have been so many calls to rest, and I've resisted them, choosing fight instead of surrender. But I'm beginning to receive those calls differently now. They feel like reminders from both my community and my ancestors that I deserve to stop performing, to simply exist and to bask in the glory of slowness. Rest is not something I have to earn. It's a birthright. If you need this reminder too, I hope you take it for yourself. Rest isn't easy, especially in a world that makes us feel impossible, but you deserve to pause. You deserve to exist without the weight of doing. Let this be a moment to listen, to feel, to honor what your body is asking you with deep love, Pat. So we're going to take a look at this. It says the policies of rest, why your exhaustion sustains oppression and why we struggle. So it says colonialism has taught us to fear rest. Colonial systems didn't just steal land, they stole rhythms of life, connection, and rest. For enslaved and colonized peoples, rest was a threat to the system of extraction. To rest was to resist. This fear was burned into the bodies of our ancestors. Rest became dangerous because it invited punishment, violence, or death. These imprints remain passed down in our DNA, manifesting as guilt, fear, or the nagging feeling that we should always be doing something. Capitalism weaponized exhaustion. Capitalism thrives on the lie that your worth is tied to your productivity. Men, we actually talk about this all the time, especially when I do the reading of bell hooks, how our worth is tied to our productivity. The thing is that we have inherent wealth. It should not be tied to our productivity. And yet it is. Why? Because we are in a system that pushes us to be productive in order to have self-worth. I think that's important. So let's continue. It tells you that your value is in what you produce, not in who you are. It rewards burnout and punishes stillness. This isn't an accident. It is a feature. Capitalism cannot survive if we rest. It needs us to stay exhausted, disconnected from our bodies, and constantly striving. Even our rest is commodified. Apps, wellness retreats, and self-care products are sold back to us as if rest is something we need to buy. The trauma of survival. For many of us, rest feels impossible because survival has never allowed it. If your ancestors had to fight to exist, to endure violence, oppression, or displacement, your body holds that survival wisdom. Rest may feel like a betrayal of the vigilance that kept them alive. Your body has learned that stopping isn't safe, and the systems around you reinforce that lesson every single day. Individualism as a tool of oppression. Rest was never meant to be an individual act. Pre-colonial societies rested in community. They rested in ceremony, in song, in the rhythms of the land. Colonialism fractured those communal practices, isolating us, making rest feel like a personal responsibility instead of a collective birthright. Alone, rest feels impossible. Together, it becomes revolutionary. Rest as radical disruption. Rest isn't about naps. It's not about escaping through self-care that centers consumption. Rest is disruption. It's asking yourself, who benefits from my exhaustion? What systems am I sustaining by refusing to slow down? Rest isn't passive. It's a declaration that you will no longer allow your body, your time, or your energy to be stolen. Revolutionary rest, a call to action. Rest in defiance. Rest because they told you not to. Rest because your ancestors couldn't. Rest because it terrifies the systems that want you numb and overworked. Reclaim communal rest. Find spaces where rest is collective. Rest in the arms of your people in shared grief, joy, and care. Rest as ancestral practice. Call on your ancestors. Let them remind you that rest is not lazy, it's sacred. It is a way of honoring their sacrifices while refusing to perpetuate the cycles of harm. Resist the grind. Say no to the hustle. Say no to the myth that you are only valuable when producing. Choose to rest as a refusal to play their game. Inspirations for further nourishment. Bell Hooks, Trisha Hersey, Resma Menken, Leah Lakshmi, Papsana Sham, oh gosh, I don't want to butcher this name. Shamara Sinha, Care, Work, Dreaming, Disability, Justice, Lineage of Somatic Experiencing, Efnu Nayaki, and Francine Kelly. Ancestral Wisdom, Acknowledging We Have Rested for Centuries in Pre-Colonial Americas. So that is really the science of rest. I also recommend that you read Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. I actually read and discussed the book here on this channel. You can go to the playlist to also listen to that if you would like to, or if you'd like to get the book, go ahead and get the book. It's a really great read. It's very cathartic, especially for those of us that are workers. But the thing is that I want to convey to people is that being on that grind all the time is not necessary. And the thing is, it's like rest is absolutely necessary in order for us to resist a system. And it is that the primary reason why I push back against Cooper for saying, oh, only taking 3 weeks getting soft. Number one, who took 3 weeks? I don't know of anybody that took 3 weeks, number one. Number two, in fact, as far as getting soft, I think that's a perpetuation that, oh, you're not as valuable when you take the needed rest that is absolutely necessary. I think we need to walk away from that mindset. I think it's important. And that mindset, that grind mindset, has been perpetuated and pushed into our heads as Black people. We've been told, oh, we're lazy, right? Even though our ancestors historically have been working their asses off for free for 400 years. Our ancestors and us have been working our behinds off. And also, as a people, as Black Americans, we have to work 10 times as hard to get half as far. So yes, that has been hammered into us since we're born. So how do we resist? I say maybe we take a step back. That's what we do. Because I not only see cash reparations as a debt that's owed, I see our rest as a debt that is owed. Our rest is a debt that is owed to us. And I say that to all workers. Rest is a debt that is owed to you because you have done far and away more than what we should have in this system. We have produced far and away more than what we needed to. Rest is also a revolutionary act. Do not let this system continually perpetuate this idea that you're only worth what you produce. No, it's not that way. Don't accept that. Oh, I'm sorry, Cooper, talking about yourself. But even still, Cooper, like, look, you have to be kind to yourself too. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes we'll perpetuate that stuff into ourselves. And I'm speaking as, out of love. Sometimes your body is telling you that you need this, even though in your mind you're saying, oh, I'm getting soft. Sometimes you got to resist that. Sometimes your body and your mind is like, we have that capitalist brain. Sometimes we gotta shut that off, and we gotta really listen to the inner selves of the inner parts of ourselves, because you matter deeply, and I want to see you live for a very long time. So, I thank you for the clarification. And this is precisely why I also say to you, don't just take your rest, but take pride in taking your rest. Because you deserve it. Deeply. And when you do, I'm proud of you for the hard work you do, but I'm also proud of the rest you take from that hard work. This channel is about love, and that's what I'm trying to do, So, right. Colin. Grind, not grinder. Let them soak. Just make sure to do it in the morning. Let them soak. Put some Dawn in there with just a couple of capfuls of bleach. It'll be fine in the morning. Just make sure to do it in the morning. All right. And then just, chill. Yeah. Love you, Coop. I hope you don't mind me calling you Coop. That was Cooper. I'm sorry. Got to be respectful. But yeah. Anyway, guys, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in for this special stream. This is the day after Christmas stream, and it was a really good conversation. Just continue to keep talking about Gaza. When it comes to those of us who are Black Americans in this country, we also have a slow moving, continuing genocide that happens with us. Don't stop talking about that. Don't stop talking about what's going on with the cop cities. Look, have solidarity with people. Do you know somebody that's disabled that's going through a lot right now? Talk to them, let them know that you have, that they matter, that you care about them. People who may somewhat be kind of different from you, as long as it's not harmful to you, then try to get to know people in their differences as well, and embrace them. As long as it's not harmful to us, be one with the people around you. You know what I'm saying? Because we got to be kind to each other. We're about to go into 2025. It's going to get rougher, as this system continues. But, I think that's also important. And let me also end with the Rockfin chat as well before we head on out. Roger says, rest is one way of taking your power back. Well, when you really like the DM stories, also notice last time we were able to rest in the middle of the day was in pre-K. I remember them naps. I also remember them Teddy Grahams too. Them Teddy Grahams and that milk. That put you in a good nap too. Or graham crackers. Roger says reparations is not for slavery and redlining, but also this. Let me share really quick. Thank you very much for this. Hang on. Okay, hang on. If this music, then I have to make sure to mute it. Okay, I'm gonna have to mute it because I don't want to get copyright. But let me enlarge this. All right, it says for 30 years, America's interstates were deliberately designed to destroy Black neighborhoods. It says federal planners called highways the best tool for clearing slums. Says federal planners call highways the best tool for clearing slums in Black neighborhoods. Says in Detroit alone, 87% of demolished homes for I-75 belong to Black families. In Birmingham, I-59, I-20 was intentionally built as a concrete wall to separate Black neighborhoods from downtown. In Nashville, officials routed I-40 through the heart of the large Black community, destroying hundreds of homes despite 14 alternative routes. This is in St. Paul. I-94 demolished 700 Black-owned homes in Rondo, destroying Minnesota's largest Black community. Over 475,000 households were displaced nationwide for interstate construction. Black homeowners were routinely paid far less than market value for seized properties. That's eminent domain too. Yeah. says the wealth stolen through highway construction is estimated at over $1 trillion in today's dollars. Wow. So thank you very much for that, Roger. Yeah, that's another thing that reparations is owed for. Definitely, the interstate highway system that displaced us. There was a video. Thank you very much for all that, Roger. There was a video that I watched recently that actually talked about actually I shared it on Twitter. Hang on, because I was talking about my grandmother's house being taken. And what spawned this was a video from Vice. I'm not going to play it, but it's a video on Vice, and I will share my screen. And I would like for you guys to watch this. It says how property law used to appropriate Black land. I think this would be really good education for a lot of you to watch. Colin says that music is open license. I don't want to take the risk. I'm not going to take the risk because I've had times where it was open license, and next thing you know, oh no, you guys can't use that. I'm not. Yeah, and then next thing you know, this video will get blocked in some countries. I'd rather not. I'd rather just keep it, quiet. But thank you very much. But that YouTube video, it's like 15 minutes, but let me tell you, it is deep. Like what happened, like a lot of the land that was stolen, not necessarily stolen, but it was used through, lawfare in order to take the land that we have for generations, in our country, for Black people, for Black Americans, it's a lot, man. And it happened. If you're watching this on Rumble, yes, I am still alive, Lady Patriot. But this is just absolutely necessary to watch, because a lot of times, a lot of people go, well, reparations is just for slavery. And I'm like, no, baby, it goes beyond slavery. Like there's lawfare that stole our land. As far as the land that my family still, I don't know if my family still has that land in Chislehurst, New Jersey, but there was a farm that my family had on that land, and then the farm got burned down. I don't think it was anybody's particular fault. I think it might have been just faulty wiring or something like that, but it was never rebuilt. And I don't know if that land is still in the family. If it is, then I hope that, we can utilize that land and then rebuild on top of it. But I don't know, I got to talk to, family members about that. And then on top of it, my grandmother's house, who she had for over 50 years because of her being late on her taxes. Then somebody was able to pay the taxes on it, and then they got ownership of the house, gave her 3 weeks to leave while she was taking care of my bedridden grandfather, who was and they were both in their 80s. And so the thing is, it's like, I got people literally in that tweet that I put out explaining the situation. They're literally blaming me and my family members for her house getting taken away from her. When in reality, most of us in our family, like, we don't have money or funds. And then we didn't know that this stuff happened, until it was too late, until after the fact that it happened. And so, it's like, what do you do? Like, there's no reversing that. And so the problem is that they count on people especially who are elderly, to, not see this stuff happening. And on top of that, I'm 1,100 miles away, you know what I'm saying? And so we're spread apart. And, it just sucks because that's what happens to a lot of Black people within this country, is that our homes will be taken from under us. Our land will be taken from under us. And then next thing you know, we have nothing to show for it. And so this is also another whole thing that goes into our argument for reparations, is that that's constantly what happens. So, yeah. But yes, thank you so very much for that. Let me head on out because I got to get to bed. I got dialysis in the morning. But everybody, just to let you guys know, we're also raising mutual aid for the RBN Orlando chapter. So if you'd like to, you guys can always donate. You guys can go to $ Orlando RBN on Cash App. So then we have that there. So I will share that in the chat as well. If you guys would like to assist with that, we're going to try to do what we can for our unhoused neighbors here in the Orlando area. And I'm going to try to see if I can get some people from People's Free Kitchen in Real Orlando to assist with that as well. Because ultimately what needs to happen is we need to build dual power and do mutual aid. And we have to do that in order to really change the system. And it has to happen now. And so I appreciate any and all, even just sharing. Thank you guys so much for that. You guys have made that possible. So thank you so very much for that. Also, of course, I think Rome is still doing his tour for the poor, even though he's locked up. He's doing his tour for the poor. So if you guys would like to, you guys can also contribute to his tour for the poor that he's doing. So if you guys would like to, I think he'll be doing an event on his birthday. So you guys have that there as well. And yeah, so be sure to tune in this Sunday for me. And then I also will be continuing into reading. So you guys got Of Water and the Spirit yesterday. The next book is The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. So I'll be getting into that. There's some interesting things that I want to, there's also some video that I want to share as well in conjunction with the book too. So that's going to be a really good reading. I'm thinking about doing a live reading again, because those go really well and you guys like that a lot. And also, if you guys can, please let me know in the chat if you are cool with me going live at 3 p.m. on Tuesdays from now on, or if you guys would like for me to do just keep at the 2 p.m. time, because I'm kind of curious about that. So yeah, with that being said, I'm going to head on out. I think I'm going to have me some cornbread before I go to bed, because that cornbread was slamming. Anywho, love you guys. Take care. Look, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them, smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you got them, then watch something funny, because joy is revolutionary. And when you watch something funny, I want you to rest, because that's also revolutionary too, okay? Don't stop talking about Palestine. Don't stop talking about the plights that are happening to marginalized people within this country, and continue to have solidarity with different groups that are, going through it, so that we can unite the working class, so that we can actually have something better for ourselves collectively. We got to do what we can. Also, when each group has a particular need, stand by them when they have that particular need. Well, it just doesn't have to be us Black Americans. It could be people who are looking for, restitution, like, for instance, the Native Americans, if they're looking for real restitution from, what has been done to them. Or if it's, groups like disabled groups that are looking for restitution, or LGBTQ groups, like, we all need restitution, in some way, shape, or form because of the system, but stand by these groups, but at the same time, don't alienate, and be more inclusive. And if anybody tries to speak against a particular group in an unkind way, call them in, let them know that, hey, that's not okay. And don't paint people with a broad brush. You know what I'm saying? That's what we have to do. We have to call people in and, do it in kindness and love, if you can. So that's what has to be done. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. Forehead kisses. I hope you guys had a great holiday if you celebrate. And if you don't, I hope you had a great day yesterday. And I will be seeing you next time on my channel for the readings. And then after that, it's going to be a whole brand new year. So it's going to be really interesting. So I hope you guys have yourself a wonderful and happy new year. Take care, guys. Love you. Thank you so very much for watching my channel. And I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.